If you only knew the power of the dark side. Excitement. Jedi craves not these things.
Shirt off. God.
You have been trying that Jedi mind trick on me since the 8th grade. It doesn't work.
Oh, it works.
Okay, we're live. New episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. Make sure you lean in.
Fine. I'll do that.
Your mom will tell you.
I know she will.
This week, we have a guest.
We do.
We've been doing good on guests.
Mm-hmm.
We had 2 last week, and this week we've got StardustEm. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm StardustEm. You can find me on TikTok at StardustEm, and on Twitter and Instagram at _StardustEm. I also have a Star Wars podcast with 2 of my friends who live in Hay called Kessel Run Relay. On TikTok and on Twitter, I scream a lot about Rogue One and Andor. And on the podcast too, but we also talk a lot about other stuff on the podcast.
I mean, nothing wrong with loving Rogue One and Andor. I mean,
No.
Rogue One is up there for some of the best Star Wars, and some of the best Star Wars characters. I mean,
I would agree.
I had to rep today for you.
Yes.
And so, this week we're talking Princess and the Scoundrel, though.
Yes.
Because Andor was not on the schedule at the time when I sent you the schedule, although it is now. Because now I know when we'd be doing the show, because now we know when Andor is.
Yeah, because we didn't know for a long time. And then they moved it, so surprised everyone who was trying to plan their podcast.
Yep. And then Bad Batch got moved as well, but it's coming out still this year, I think is what I heard. So people keep saying September 28th. I doubt that, but yeah.
I don't know.
Speaking of Star Wars shows, though, I did my little Star Wars Newsnet news search real quick and saw what they were writing about. So this week we heard about Star Wars The Acolyte, which is a show I'm excited about, because I love me that High Republic era, and I also love me Sith stories. So The Acolyte is the perfect thing of that. And apparently their stages are being built in Berkshire right now. And so that means that production is underway. Does that bring any excitement to anybody besides me?
I'm excited for that. I like Amandla Stenberg quite a lot, so I'm excited to see them in the lead.
Yeah, I'm looking at some images right now that they posted. It's like, you can tell they got some drone shots, which is the only way we see sets nowadays, is from drone shots. And so there's some closer ones of them like building the sets. And so like they're out in this big field area where they can have a lot of open range to build.
Might take a while.
Well, it depends what they're building.
True.
And then, according to the article, Star Wars is expected to have a significant presence at D23, which makes sense. There's a lot to talk about at D23, I think. Not just Star Wars, but because this is a Star Wars podcast, yes, Star Wars.
Yep.
And then, so we'll probably get some updates of what the schedule is going to be like for Star Wars shows on Disney Plus during that, because they're probably going to give a lot of schedules.
Sorry about my lack of enthusiasm.
No, you're fine. Yeah, you and I
at like 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I slept in this morning a little bit, and so I got a little bit of rest, and then I've got coffee and breakfast here. We also got announcement for 4 new Black Series figures.
Yeah.
Specifically related to the Andor series. We got a new Shore Trooper. We've got an Officer Ferrex figure. And we got Aldhani Mission, which is Cassian Andor set. It's the Aldhani Mission look. So he's got the Imperial cap. Yeah, the little Imperial cap with the ISB like armor, and then like
it kind of also looks like the Mud Trooper armor that Han wore.
Mm-hmm. And then like a kind of the rest of the uniform is under it, like because it's like skirted off underneath it with the slacks. And then we got Imperial Officer Dark Times, which has like a nice cape. And so I kind of like that. I like when the Imperials get their little capes.
How do we know they're evil? They're wearing all black and have a cape.
That's not true. Sometimes they wear all white and have a cape.
So the cape is the real thing.
Maybe that's why Edna Mode said no capes. We figured out the real reason. But that's all. That's really all I could find for news that really seemed to interest me at the moment. There's other stuff, like we've got some interview stuff going on because of Andor coming up, and then of course there was the Rian Johnson stuff that came out with Empire magazine and talking about he's still doing the trilogy, which I'm not surprised. Every time somebody says, is Rian Johnson not doing the trilogy anymore, I'm like, where'd you get that? Because as far as I know, he's doing it until he says he's not, or they say he's not, and nobody said that.
And no one's told him no.
Yeah, no one's told him no. He's just a busy man. He's making 2 more Knives Out films, which one of them's on the way. And then, like, the man has a Netflix deal.
Pretty busy.
Yeah, like, he's getting paid to basically make whatever he wants, and then make Star Wars.
First, as a pretty big slate they got to get through, I'm thinking, before they want to do another trilogy.
Yeah.
How do you, like, almost permanent job security for the next, like, 5 to 10 years?
And he's got that. He's got Netflix. He's got Lucasfilm. There's, like, he's set. And Netflix is paying him to make whatever films he wants, like, whatever stories. Whereas Lucasfilm, he's a little more tied down to fit the Star Wars narrative. So, yeah, I get, and also, like, I get picking Netflix over Lucasfilm first, because get to make whatever I want and not have to deal with the Star Wars fan base.
Yeah, you gotta let The Last Jedi, I think he wants the sequel trilogy to settle for a few more years.
Let's let that cool off before we throw some more gasoline on the fire.
Wait for the Taika film to come out, and then...
Yeah. And then once people are caught up in that, then you go...
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Patty Jenkins. Like, people are like, "Oh, she's not making her Rogue Squadron film anymore." Nobody said that. They've said it's delayed. She's busy. She's making the next Wonder Woman film, Amazonian film, which I think she dropped that one. She's just producing that one, I think.
Yeah.
So that way she can focus on eventually doing Rogue Squadron, because Rogue Squadron's important to her. Because when she announced it, she was like, "It's important to me because my dad," and so like, I don't get when people come out and go, they're not making these films anymore. Who said that, though?
No one said that. It's also always interesting how the films that are, half the time it's the films that are canceled are the ones by, like, women and people of color. It's like, okay.
Or somebody that
you want to be more transparent on that.
Or somebody the fan base just happens to not like for the month. It's whoever the enemy of the month is. Yeah.
Their favorite target. And Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are doing even more stuff now.
Yeah. My bad. I stepped on his cable. So.
Don't do that. We know it has to be low so people can hear me.
But yeah, and of course, yeah, like you said, Favreau and Dave can do no wrong, except when they do, but it's not their fault. It's Kathleen.
Yeah, it's Kathleen, or it's the director who doesn't write the script.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I should know this. Robert Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, yeah.
I was about to say I should know that. I should know that because Spy Kids.
For that, I was like, what do you expect from the guy who directed Spy Kids? That's kind of on you that you went into this.
Like, if you've ever seen any of his movies, this is on brand. Yeah. Like even outside of Spy Kids, his more like adult films are still like over the top. Like all the mariachi films with Antonio Banderas, they're so over the top. And then like From Dusk Till Dawn. The man works with Tarantino. You don't expect over the top? But yeah. That's my little rant for this episode, I guess. I gotta have my rant sometimes.
Oh, you reminded me of... I forget which one of the mariachi films I watched, but it's hilarious.
There's Once Upon a Time in Mexico. There's El Mariachi, and I forget the third one.
I think it's the second one. Yeah.
But, yeah. Right. So let's, I guess, get into the meat of this episode, because we're here to talk about Princess and the Scoundrel, which is... So it was nothing like what we kind of were thinking, I think, when we were told. Like, it is, but it isn't. Because everybody started immediately relating it to the courtship of Princess Leia. I'm
so glad it wasn't like that book. A blessing. Beth Rita saved us.
How bad was that? If you're not willing to talk about it.
So there are some really.
I-
I'll let you take it. I'll let you
Okay.
take it. This is.
I read it right before The Princess and the Scoundrel because I was like, oh, it's fun. I'll read it. Horrible. Horrible. Leia is so out of character. She just like lets herself get pushed into an arranged marriage, basically. She goes from I love Han to never mind I'm in love with the guy who I'm in this arranged marriage with. Han kidnaps her against her will, and then there's like no real resolution to that. She's like mad and then it gets over it. And Han wins Dothamir, which is where he's kidnapping Leia to take her to in a sabacc game from a warlord. This is also like the first appearance of the Night Sisters.
Yeah. What? Yeah, which the Night Sisters are not a race in the EU. They are. It's more like just a group of women who decided we're gonna use magic and that's it.
They're like witches who broke off from another sect of witches on Dothamir.
Yeah. Like, so it's not like
And then-
in Clone Wars where they're like a race.
It's so bad. And then like and then the worst part or like not the worst part, the part that always shocks me is like Han faces off against the like big bad Night Sister, and she's like, I'm gonna break every bone in your body. So she shatters his leg, and then she starts shattering his molars through magic, and it's like the most violent thing I've ever seen in a Star Wars. And I was like, why would you write this?
God damn.
I forget who
I
wrote
also-
that.
Dave something. I heard that I was looking at like Goodreads reviews, and I guess somebody said that he was supposed to write a trilogy, and that got scrapped. So I think he just shoved everything that he wanted to do in the trilogy into this one book.
David Farland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and so like Courtship of Princess Leia is sold as the marriage story of Han and Leia, but it's not that.
It's not that. It's barely a romance.
And, whereas this is that. Honestly, if this should have been called The Courtship of Princess Leia, and that should have just been The Princess and the Scoundrel, because the titles fit better. But we can only do so much about the past.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were expecting this to be kind of... They were expecting that because everybody kind of forgot that Courtship of Princess Leia was not what it sounds like.
Well, this isn't that.
This isn't that, and we're better off for that.
Oh.
So I did the audiobook as usual,
Mhm.
and I loved it. Saskia did a
All right.
great job as Leia.
I'm gonna ask the question now because it always happens when you listen to the audiobook. Which character's name do you think I'm going to horribly, horribly butcher? Because I don't use the audiobooks, I just read them.
See, to be fair, I've forgotten a lot of the secondary characters because
Oh.
it's been a minute. So I will just trust you to be
Okay,
correct.
Yeah.
that's a dangerous
I also
situation.
read it. So I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right.
Yeah, but Saskia did a great job as because. So one of the narrative things that Beth does with this book that I think is amazing, and I talk about this in the interview that will be later on in this episode, is she does the back and forth between Leia and Han. So we have the point of view chapters, and the best way to you basically Leia Han. That's the best way to kind of explain it. And so for the audiobook, they had two readers. So we got our usual Marc Thompson, and he does Han, which we'll get to hear in the interview, but he was happy to be back as Han. And that's good, because I like his Han.
I heard everyone was like, everyone that I knew that listened to the audiobook was like, oh my god, he does such a like spot on Han.
I was joking in the car ride here with Seth. I was like, it's kind of like if you took Harrison Ford from Air Force One, and that's kind of the way he reads it. But that's Han. Like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna pick a different Harrison Ford film to base your Han on, Air Force One. That's about right. And so he does that for Han, and then we have I forget her first name, but her last name is Saskia, and she does the Leia chapters. And I guess we should talk about the actual story, I guess, because
Yeah.
I'm about to like I got emotional during
yeah?
listening to it.
Yeah.
Within the first few chapters.
Oh.
Because they just jump us right. They drop us right into it. They're like, all right, we're gonna do the wedding. Like they're like, no wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to see a really cool Ewok wedding.
Yeah.
I kind of like the traditions that the Ewoks have. They have like low grade kind of does the ceremony along with the chieftain Chirpa, and so because low grade's kind of their. I don't know. It's not canon anymore, but low grade can use the Force in the expanded universe because that's the magic that the Ewoks have. Because magic is the Force. They just don't know that because they don't know the term for it.
Yeah.
And then of course they have C3. Han doesn't like the idea of the Ewoks running the ceremony, so he's like, "Can we get that annoying droid C3PO to do it? Just claim you're a god again, and that'll." And so we get C3PO kind of officiates for them, and I like that. It makes sense that they would pick somebody like C3PO to be the officiator, and then of course Lando has. Yeah, go ahead.
Luke was going to officiate, and like the Ewoks took over, and Luke can't understand them, so they had to.
Yeah.
I guess a Jedi, it's kind of like being a priest, so like you're automatically it's legal if you officiate.
Yeah, we said Luke has real youth pastor vibes.
But like at a hip church where like the LGBTQ community are allowed, because Luke is already like Luke wouldn't be allowed at any other church.
Yeah, that's how they really sell. They're like our youth pastors, you know.
But of course they don't say what he is because they're not sure. Because like Luke hasn't actually come out, but it's obvious.
Yeah.
With them Chanel boots and that ace personality at the same time, it's hard to tell.
It's hard.
But yeah, so Luke was gonna officiate.
Yeah,
but
and then the Ewoks were like,
no, we've got this.
Meanwhile,
Lando
was like, Han, you have to dress nice for once.
Yeah, just for once, just for this one day, you have to dress nice.
Yeah, Barry, borrow one of my cakes.
That's
actually
you joke about that, Scotty, without reading the book, but that's what happens.
He was literally like, you cannot wear the same clothes you wear.
I know, it's another pretend that I am. A cape goes with everything.
Yeah, no, he tricks Han into wearing one of his outfits, claiming it's from Carillion, it's from Alderanian.
No, Alderaan.
Yeah, it's from Alderanian descent, and it's what you're supposed to wear at Alderanian marriages.
He's just lying to it.
He's like, you know, the jacket was Alderaan, and Leia's like, no, it's not.
And I think Han's reaction was like, that motherfucker lied to me.
But at the same time, Han's like, of course he lied to me. That makes sense. It's Lando.
Yeah. I also like how Han was like too beefy to fit into it.
Like,
he's like, I can't zip it. I was like canonically beefier than Lando.
I feel like that might have been a section Chris had a problem with. Our resident Lando fan.
Whose measurements are we basing off of? Is it Alden and Donald, or is it Billy and Harrison?
You know what? I think it's because Han spends so much time running away from his problems.
Well, so yeah, so we get through the marriage, and I teared up during the marriage ceremony, during the Leia, specifically during the Leia side of it, because we get the wedding from both perspectives. It takes up, I wanted to say, the first 4 chapters is the wedding, or at least the first 2, something like that.
It takes a while because we have the bachelor party before he like proposes, and then we have the Ewok bachelor party, and she goes and sees like Vader's funeral pyre too.
That's right, yeah. Which, we're gonna get into the daddy issues of it all here.
Oh. Yeah.
This is one of the parts that both Andrew and I called him over to read the section where like Leia tells Han about how like Vader is her dad, and I showed him Han's reaction. He's like, "Well, good thing he's dead." I'm like,
Not a real problem.
Yeah, not our problem anymore. We don't have to meet the parents.
you won't have to be meeting any parents.
That's why I said
any
plural.
side of the
Yeah,
family.
any side of the family, because I've been reading the Han Solo and Chewbacca comic. A little bit of spoiler for the first arc. Han's dad is in it,
Yeah. But, like, it's maybe not his dad?
but it's maybe not his dad. But we haven't resolved that yet, so I don't know if his dad is still alive, or if we find out that it's not his dad, or he dies during the events of this comic yet. We don't know. But either way, there's daddy issues on both sides, and there's like, and they're both like, okay, whew, we don't have to meet the parents.
Didn't he say, like, I wish you could meet them, and he's like, why, so I could disappoint them for Bale and Brea?
Yeah, like, and that, like, in the case of the Belle and Brea one, that's the parents that would have been like, I feel like Belle would have been, Belle seems like the type he would understand Han.
Yeah, well, I think Bray would like him too, because I remember in Leia Princess of Alderaan, they make a joke about dating scoundrels, and how, like, Bray was like, oh, when I was younger, like, you dated and maybe you'll date one day, and Leia's like, oh, no, never.
Yeah. I feel like Brea would, she would approve at the end, but it would be like she'd have to get through the whole, like, okay, so I said you could date a scoundrel. I didn't say you could marry one. Especially since Alderanian tradition, you know, she would have been arranged, probably. Because that's what Belle and Brea
Not
were.
many Alderanian traditions around anymore.
Yeah, because Belle and Brea were arranged, but it worked out that they did love each other. And that's some of the stuff also going in Leia's head is, like, how the marriage would, like, how her family would think of this. And of course, yeah, she's not happy seeing that Luke basically gave a proper funeral to Vader. She's not happy about that.
Yeah.
And she's dealing with the situations of, okay, he's my dad too. How do I connect that when I know Luke to be such a good person? And I know I'm a good person.
Why was our dad so fucking evil?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think this is relatable to some people. I personally can't relate to it, but I see where the relatability is, because some people just have terrible parents and have to resolve that.
Yeah.
And realize that our parents are not us, and we don't always reflect on what our parents were.
Yeah, well, and I always like Leia's assertion that, like, she might be related to Vader, but, like, that's not her father. Like, Bale was her father. And it's, like, the same thing she asserts in this book, and I love the, you know, Bale is Stardust, and Vader is just ash on this planet. That part really got me. But I like that she is so, like, still, like, yeah, I might be related to him, but, like, Bale is who raised me, and he is my father and always will be.
Yeah, it's that situation of removing toxic family members that some people have to go through, because they may be your parents or any member of your family, but sometimes you got to cut them off. And that's kind of this situation. This is her way of cutting Vader off, even if he's not alive, and he's not alive anymore. But she can still cut him off and be like, nope.
Yeah, or like in the case of, like, Luke can give him forgiveness, but he didn't earn my forgiveness, so I don't have to give it to him or anybody.
Yeah, because everybody goes through a different journey. So, like, one of your siblings could get along with your parent because they've worked things out, but you might still not be able to, because you never had that chance.
Yeah.
Because the last time Leia really saw Vader, he was torturing Han.
Yeah, freezing her
Let's
the
see.
love of her life in
Well,
carbonite.
well,
and then
at least in the
chopping her
movies.
brother's hand off.
Yeah, at least in the movies. Obviously, in the comics, she's run into him a couple more times since then, but
Yeah.
they've not not been great experiences either. Like, more the bounty hunters.
Going on movies alone, her events shared with her biological father are you blew up my home.
Torture.
You tortured me and my friends. You froze Han in carbonite, and you cut off my brother's hand.
And sold my boyfriend off to the Hutts.
Yeah, that too. Not necessarily in that order, but every experience
that's just
ever
the
had
films.
has been bad.
Yeah, like that's just the films.
And then I imagine every other person who talks about meeting Vader, she's just like, oh fuck. Every other person having the worst experience with Vader.
Meanwhile, Luke's like, no, they're still good in him.
If I was Leia, I'd be like, I don't know if he's
might have to cut Luke off.
Yeah.
Leia, I think your brother might be a little bit fucking crazy from hanging out with all these weirdos on these isolated planets.
Yeah, he hung out with this old guy, and then he hung out with this whole old Muppet, like
frog.
Yeah, old Muppet frog, and
in one of the
he's seeing ghosts.
That's another. So, since we're talking about the Force, that's another thing that Leia's kind of struggling with. She's trying to decide what path she wants to go on from here, because the war is essentially over. It's not over because we haven't hit the Battle of Jakku yet, which is the final nail in the coffin for the war. But it's essentially over. Like, everybody else is like, all right, we're going to treat this as it's over, and we're going to start trying to do business as usual again.
This is the big turning point.
Yeah. They're not on course. Yeah, no, you okay?
I think so.
Okay. They're not on Coruscant yet because they haven't forced Mas Amedda to sign the treaty yet. But and by force I mean
just ask
him, because Mas Amedda's like, I don't want the.
He's like, well, all of my friends are dead. There's nothing else for me to do. My bosses are dead too.
Yeah.
I didn't
like my boss particularly well, so yeah, you can have it.
I don't really care.
Yeah. But they haven't done any of that yet. But Mon Mothma is like, all right, we're moving on. Akbar's like, yep, time to just treat this like we're the new Republic now. We're the new law. Let's go. And Leia's like, okay, so do I continue as a soldier? Am I a politician full time now? Or do I want to go with my brother and learn about the Force? Because he's offered. A lot of choices on this road.
Also, I just got proposed to and said yes.
Yeah. That too, yeah. And told him
now what?
And told him that Vader was my father, and he acted very nonchalant about it.
Very.
I like his reaction later when he's thinking about it. He's like, wait a minute, I did act a little bit too nonchalant about that.
You're like, wait. I do like, though, that's like the continuation of in Bloodline, like all of Leia's friends being like, whatever, like when it gets exposed and Lana calls her and it's like, we're all good, I don't care.
Yeah, it's like, I don't care because that's not who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I think that's what it comes down to, is most people don't see Leia I mean, I think this, once again, is what makes it relatable, the story for Leia and Han, is Leia sees herself a certain way, and she's worried that others also see her this way, because she's starting to see the Vader in her where others do not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, others are like, no, it's not a problem. You're fine. But, of course, everybody always sees themselves a little bit more harshly than, say, friends or family.
Yeah, and I think in the same way, it's nice to see in the same way that Leia is struggling within herself. Then you can see how that would lead to her struggling with it when it comes to her son, and like not wanting her son to become like Vader, and why she would keep something like that from him. Because like in the same way she's scared, like, oh, if I learn the Force, what if I follow the path of Vader? If my son learns the Force, what if he follows the path of Vader?
And if I tell him that Vader's his grandfather, what's that going to do to him? Although I think not telling him might have been not Leia's fault. Not Leia's fault.
Not Leia's fault. I think she made the correct decision, but like It's like she was doing what she thought was best.
I think the way he learned it is where the problem lies.
Yeah, and then when you like add on top of that like Snoke/Palpatine's manipulation,
So
it's a bad recipe.
So you haven't read Bloodlines yet. We're gonna get to it,
Yeah.
but basically,
I know he finds out. I don't know how he finds
so
out.
so basically, imagine being secluded on a planet with your
Okay.
uncle, learning about the Force, and then all of a
Alright.
sudden TMZ shows up on the news and says Vader is Leia's father.
His father, and you've never heard this before. You've just found out you're biologically related to Darth Vader.
Through TMZ.
And your uncle was like, yikes!
And you're
Sorry, everyone.
and you're basically almost an adult at this point because this is only 6 years before The Force Awakens.
You're
This
a
is
20-year-old.
Hold on. So this is on not Leia herself. This is on 3 people. This is on Han for not telling him, and it's on Luke. Luke especially for not telling him.
I feel like, yeah, if anybody should have told him, it should have been Luke, I guess. Like, Luke feels like the appropriate. But I feel like I think he chose not to because Leia probably said,
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like,
don't
oh,
tell him.
it's a case of like
I'm gonna
My-
respect your
my
parents
family
not
member
telling
asked
you.
me
Yeah.
Yeah.
to not tell. It's one of those sibling conversations of we're never gonna talk to anyone about this ever, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, like, Leia's keeping
Which-
it a secret because she doesn't want people to make, like, assumptions about
Yeah,
her
'cause
based on the fact. And then,
'cause
which is exactly what happens.
It's because it's talked about in this book that it's kind of in a funny way retroactively setting up Bloodline because she talks about that where she's like, I don't want people to judge me because of Vader, and I don't want that being used against me, which Bloodline shows us that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, especially when she's, like, I mean, right now she's still kind of deciding, but basically when she is, like, the face of the rebellion, and then she ends up being a really big major leader in the New Republic Senate.
Yeah, because by the time of Bloodline, a two-party system is made, and Leia's on one side of the parties, and then one of her best friends is on the other side, and then he's the one that spills the beans because she told him. Thanks for the
Amy Walls ransom.
yeah. Thanks for the follow, Zoe. We're good. We're just talking Princess and the Scoundrel and Bloodline and the complications of having a evil father. But we've talked about Leia, I think a good bit for the marriage. Let's talk about Han. Han is also struggling. Han's concern is more of, am I good enough?
Yeah. And I really appreciate actually exploring, like, the PTSD that he would have from being frozen in carbonite. Like, not only, like, the physical effects, like, when we see him, like, when he, like, gets dropped in, like, the cold water and how he has that panic, but also, like, for Leia, it's been an entire year that she's loved him and that she's been searching for him. But for him,
It's
like,
been like a
he
week.
was-
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a week.
it's been a week. He emerged and he feels like he missed all this stuff. And, like, in a way, I think marriage is, like, sort of a way for him to, like, take back control of, like, all that he's lost. And, like, okay, like, I was frozen, but, like, I'm back in my life. This is one way that I can have something.
Yep, and we're gonna see throughout the book his ways of like trying to cope and try to like take control over his own life because I guess we can kind of skip a few chapters here and there now because we've kind of been doing that anyways. But he's gonna when Mon Mothma offers them the honeymoon because it's both a business trip and a honeymoon, and she's like, "Hey, Leia, do this business trip where you're gonna get a nice little photo op." And we'll basically do good press for the New Republic and show life is normal now.
Yeah.
Like, even one of our leaders is getting married and on her honeymoon.
Yeah. It's really, it's also interesting on her insistence on, like, Leia going, especially when you consider that now Mon Mothma was married. I guess we don't know, but, like, I don't know, this idea that, like, it's possible that if she loses her husband, especially in Andor, that, like, part of the assistant is, like, you should take this time to be with the people you love, because, like, I wish that I could.
Yep.
Like, I wish that I could go back to my husband now that this war is over, but
Yeah, because
I don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, because it's not just like Mon Mothma's not just pushing this because of like business reasons. She's also like, as your friend, I'm telling you, take a break.
Like the one person who like kind of not the one person, but like someone who cares about you as a person.
Yeah, like I'm immediately thinking of Hamilton because we just watched Scamilton. And so of course I'm thinking of the Take a Break song. And so that's basically this moment. Like instead of going upstate, you're gonna go on a cruise.
On a cruise, yeah.
She's like, you've been working incredibly hard these like past
4 years.
to 4 years. Fucking chill for like a little bit.
Yeah, literally
it's
working
fine.
since she was. I mean, she's been in the rebellion since she was 16 years old.
It's fine. We can handle business without you for like 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, like
2 to 3 weeks.
Like she's been, like you said, she's been in the rebellion since she was 16, and then she's been a leader for about 4 years, if not a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And so like Mon Mothma's like, you're not the only leader here.
Yeah,
Akbar and I will
leader
be
for
fine.
4 years, who was also a leader while dealing with losing her entire planet.
Yeah, so she's like, Akbar and I will be fine. We've got this.
We got this.
We've been doing this since before you were around. We've got it. And so, after Mon Mothma talks to Han about it, Han is able to convince her.
Yeah.
And so he basically says, all right, Chewie, you get the Falcon for a week.
Go
Yeah.
in.
Also, here's some stuff we should probably get altered, some new parts, and get fixed.
Yeah, basically Chewie's gonna soup up the ride while...
Also, very sweetly do something that makes it... He's like, also, do something that makes it feel more like a home for Leia. That was really sweet.
Also, go see your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, also go see your wife and child.
Yeah, you should probably do that.
Which,
now that...
because this takes place before Aftermath, he technically still can't do. Because
Chewie has another rough
the Empire,
week by himself.
Well, because the Empire is still over Kashyyyk.
On Kashyyyk. Oh.
Because that's not dealt with until the second Aftermath book.
Jesus.
Yeah. So we still got like 6 months maybe before that Kashyyyk is free. So Han doesn't know that though, so that's not on him.
Oh yeah, he has. Oh, like we've said earlier, he's been back for what, a week, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he doesn't
He's promoted
know.
to general.
Like all of a sudden he's a general. All of a sudden he's like, they're like, yeah, you're in charge. Oh yeah, and also we dealt with all that stuff that you missed while you were.
Also, there's another Death Star, so we gotta handle that.
There's a great line towards the start of Return of the Jedi where like Leia, while she's disguised, tells Han that Luke's a Jedi Knight now, and he's like, I go away, and everyone starts getting delusions of grandeur because he doesn't believe it.
Yeah, because once again, for him this is a week, and somehow the farm kid is a Jedi Knight. Like, and honestly, I'm on the side of Han. Luke is still way too naive. Like, this is the one time I will take Han's side. Like, but yeah, so they go on their honeymoon, and immediately Leia gets surrounded by press. And so, like, Han is like, okay, I'm gonna let you do your business. I'm gonna go explore the ship.
Gamble.
Yeah, he basically, so he starts off gambling on the main deck, on the main casino floor.
No.
And he's like, I can't. Oh no, he's watching.
He's looking at.
He's watching. He's like, it's no fun.
Yeah, he's
and
like,
he's
like, there's no stakes, there's no money.
And he is like, it's the difference between how I play card games and other people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I just do it because it's fun. And some people are like, that's not enough.
Yeah, like you and me, we've been playing some. I went to Disney a couple months ago, and I brought back the Sabacc deck. So we've been playing Sabacc, like almost every Tuesday after your
Yeah.
D&D games, like you, me, your brother, and our friends, we just play Sabacc, and I taught them Sabacc. And so, like, we just play for fun. We're not playing for money or anything, but, like, that
Some
Han is the
people-
opposite. Han wants to play for stakes. He wants money.
I would not join your game of Sabacc.
Like, we play with real cards. He would enjoy that part, but he's like, where's the money? Where's the stakes? I need people to be losing their ships.
I'll take a card and I'll stand.
Yeah, so, like, that's the difference. And so Han's like, you're not even playing with real cards. Like, this is all hollow,
Yeah.
which means the house definitely wins a lot because it's very easy to manipulate a hollow deck versus actual cards. And so,
He's like, where's the grime at?
yeah, where's the hate for the fellow players? I need to have enemies that I'm trying to crush. That's Han.
The bartender.
Yeah, the bartender's nice enough to be like, hey, so there's this, like, secret
Is
game. There's a secret game in the back if you go to the engine room. And so, yeah, he goes to the engine room where he's, like, met with,
I'm thinking of the holiday special. What could you get for a man whose friends just ditched him? About some better friends.
oh, yeah, the summer vacation special, yeah. And so, like, yeah, so he goes to the back and he's met with, I forget the name of the race all of a sudden, Zeb's race from Rebels.
Lasat.
Lasat, yes. So Lasat is like, Lasat's like, what are you doing here? What do you think you're doing?
Seth Revis loves a good Lasat.
Yeah. And so he's like, look, I'm just here to join the game. I was told to meet with such and such person, which is the organizer. And he's like, I was just told to go here. And he's like, I don't know. And then she comes up and she's like, nope, he's good. Let him in.
Bartender send you?
Yep.
All right, come on.
And so they go in, and what a crew of players we meet. What a cast of characters.
You got guy who worked with the Empire sitting between a general of the rebellion and the guy who was a part of the literal genocide by the Empire. Fun times for him.
And then just somebody who doesn't care because she worked for the Hutt cartel, which the Hutts Hutts only recently lost control of this ship because the Halcyon Legacy has it has had so many owners.
It's changed hands a lot, apparently.
I haven't finished reading the Halcyon Legacy comics. I don't think all of them are out yet. But as you read it, you see the different eras of the Halcyon's ownership. So it starts in the High Republic era. That's when it's built and when its inaugural launches. And so I think it was a private owned during that time, but it was essentially part of the Republic fleet. And so then it switched hands to the Republic proper. Then it switched to the Hutts, and now it's with the New Republic. Well, it's kind of back to it's private ownership, but also New Republic ownership. It's not really ever truly made clear. Yeah, and
then
also
sequel trilogy kind of falls under First Order again.
Yeah, it falls kind of under First Order control.
I haven't been to the hotel.
Yeah, I haven't been to the hotel either. I don't have the money for that.
Man,
I wish.
different people keep coming into this hotel and changing all the color schemes every fucking 30 years.
Well, the good news is the hotel just sticks to one era. The hotel.
No, I'm making a joke.
Yeah, yeah. In universe,
the fourth redesign they've had.
Yeah. And they still have stuff from the one before.
Yeah, they forgot to go into that back room to fix that, but it's fine. Not too many people are gonna go there, and so
still
the rooms on the lower deck rooms haven't been updated since their High Republic era.
Yeah. So
there's an Empire flag in one room.
You're oh.
Because no one's gone in there to clean it out yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a flag from a different era, and they're like, we shouldn't have that.
All faded.
Let's put that over in
Let's burn that because
Let's
that
make sure
we
one's
shouldn't
not
have
around
that.
for that.
I feel like in the New Republic, having an Empire flag is very similar to having a certain flag in the real world.
That's another good bloodlines when like Leia goes into Rance's office like, what the fuck?
He's a collector. He's a history collector. He's a history buff. He's a history buff. It's the real world I'm a history buff.
I'm a history buff. Okay.
But are you specifically that type of history?
History.
I mean, that's what George says that the Empire is based on that and American colonialism. So like,
So.
but yeah, so Han finds this back room and he starts playing, and of course he's immediately catching on to like everybody's kind of story, and because Han is somebody who can read people really well, and that Imperial guy cannot shut up.
No.
He's like, I'm working for the Empire. I came up with the
he's not working for the Empire.
Well, I was
And that's the
contracted.
problem.
Not anymore. I was contracted with them because I was making these gravity well things, and I'm the guy that made it to where it's harder that we can stop ships from going into hyperspace easily.
Yeah.
And
I
Han,
would have gotten the award if it wasn't for Urso.
yeah, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for the meddling rebels. Meanwhile, one of those meddling rebels is right there. And Han is just seething. He's like, so that thing that killed so many of my friends was designed by you?
I was like, honestly, he's like that Lasat didn't just take a swing at him.
Well, at least he didn't come up with that weapon.
Yeah.
If he came up with that weapon, then... But that goes into our friend Callus.
He was like, I was on Lyrason.
God. I feel like he would have been on Team Stardust and not saying anything.
Well, no, he wouldn't have been. He
No.
wouldn't have been because he was mad at. He had beef with Jyn Erso Galen Erso for
yeah.
winning the award that should have been his.
Yeah, he was mad. He was like, stupid Death Star and...
He probably had some like very specific beef with Krennic.
Krennic had beef with everybody, though.
That's true. Krennic probably hated him.
Krennic is the guy that's like, am I the drama?
And I.
It's like, so many people hate me, but is it me? Am I
Is
the
it
drama?
me? Well, my favorite is like he'd get in fights for Galen.
Yeah. He's
Like, yeah.
yeah, he's like, I'm gonna fight Tarkin, I'm gonna fight this guy, I'm gonna fight that guy,
I'm gonna try to control Vader.
I'm gonna fight Thrawn.
Just pick fights with everyone else where you work.
Well,
at.
it's because the Empire, the Tarkin Initiative was very smart in that it fed on competition.
Mm.
And so, like, this guy would have been part of the Tarkin Initiative and feeding into that competition. And basically, the idea is, whichever is the best weapon is what we'll actually fund. And so, a lot of things were competing for these same funds. And it was like...
Yeah, like the TIE Defenders.
Yeah,
and
like in Rebels,
the
it's...
Death Star.
Yeah, in
Okay.
Rebels, it's the TIE Defenders that Thrawn is making, which gets fucked up by...
Good job, Kanan.
Good job, Kanan. Good job, Price. You did a
Krobas.
Price is like, we're gonna take out that Jedi at any cost. Wait a minute, we just blew up the fuel that's for Thrawn's
He
thing. Crap. And then you had the Tarkin was kind of playing all sides because he's like, I'm totally for the Death Star, but I'm also totally for the TIE Defender.
Whichever one I get to control.
Yeah. Either way, at the end of the day, Tarkin's the guy in a group project that's gonna take he's the one taking all the credit.
He won't be taking any credits now, will he?
It's like that guy. He's the guy who takes credit for all the group projects, but except he's in multiple groups
So it
at the
shouldn't
same
count.
time. It's kind of like if the teacher took credit for what their students did and was like, "See, I
Yeah.
did that."
Ah,
Yeah, I get that.
But yeah, so this guy is kind of upset with that because he's like, now that Death Star 2 is blown up and the Empire's gone, I got no employer. I had this, but I am meeting up with this guy to sell something to him, and maybe that will get me back in good graces with the Empire.
he said, surrounded by people who either A, don't care, or B,
Really don't like the Empire. Either really don't like the Empire or just think the Empire is an annoyance.
yeah.
Because that's where I would put the Hut Lady. She's more like,
She's like,
I don't care, but they're an annoyance. The Empire's an annoyance because I
Yeah.
can't.
They won't let me drink my booze when I want to.
I hut booze.
My crime alcohol.
I need my spice.
They won't let me toke up while I'm on the clock, man.
Yeah, but yeah.
Sucks.
So eventually things get very heated
Yeah.
because the Lasat is finally just like, I'm gonna fucking punch you. I'm gonna come across this table and start a fight. And Han is like, wait. I'm just here for a fun game. Sure, it's a little heated because we're playing against each other, but we don't gotta resort to that. And so
And he's like, maybe I should kidnap Leia.
yeah, so the Lasat leaves because Han basically convinces him that the guy's not worth the Lasat's time.
Yeah.
He's like, you're worth more than that. You don't need to punch this guy. He's nothing. And then after everybody leaves, no, the Hut Lady's still there, so she hears this deal.
Yeah.
Keelad is this guy who won't shut the fuck up about what he used to do.
He's- It's that saying of, don't commit crime, but if you're gonna commit crime, don't be recorded saying that you're gonna commit crime.
Don't tell the crime you're gonna commit to the person's husband.
And so he's like, yeah, I'm gonna kidnap that Leia lady because she's on this ship and she could be worth a good bounty because the Empire's still got bounties on her.
Yeah, she's got tons of it.
And Han,
And Han's like, let's take a walk.
let's take a walk. I'm interested in
why
this.
Why don't I help you out with that?
Meanwhile, he has to lose a couple hands on purpose, because the Hut Lady's like, I know who you are, and so like I'll squeal right now if you don't give me some of your money. And so he's like, I'll put some more money on the table, and then I'm folding.
Yeah.
Because
Then
also that guy, the Imperial
Yeah.
guy, cannot play cards.
he
no.
sucks.
He's real bad at it.
Like, Sabak is very luck-based, but that guy is somehow took a luck-based game and made it a skill-based game and sucked at it. Like, we've learned it's a luck-based game. There is no skill involved. Like, you either have the best cards you need or you don't.
You don't.
He also doesn't know
And
when to
then
fold. Like, if you're playing for money,
Yeah.
you gotta know when to fold.
You gotta know when to be like, all right, time to cut your losses.
But he's like, instead, kidnapping.
Yeah, instead,
We'll go with that.
yeah. Like, I've now lost all my money because I don't know how to play cards. So let's do this kidnapping thing.
And then Han's like, how about I kick you off the ship instead?
How about put you in an escape pod? Oh, we skipped a part though, because we got to bring up the engineer guy who walks in on this card game.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
Ugnaught.
Because he's gonna come back.
Like,
Because
yeah,
the
He's like-
Ugnaught is like, what are you doing in the engineering section? You're not supposed to be here. And they're like, we can be here if we want.
They basically tell him to stuff it.
Yeah. They tell him to take off because, like, the Hut Lady's like, I have bigger pull than you. I know the people that are in charge of this ship.
Yeah.
You don't want to mess with me. And the Ugnaughts like, fine. And so he leaves, and when Han is kicking the Imperial off the ship in the escape pod, the Ugnaught shows back up, which is why I was like, wait a minute, we got to talk about him.
yeah. And it's like, hey, you can't do that.
What
Yeah,
the hell are you doing?
Because this time, the Hut Lady's not there to defend you, so now I can actually be mad at you for being in a part of the ship you're not supposed to be at.
Yeah.
He's basically pulling a Rose. Except he doesn't have the anything to shock and knock out Han with.
And then it's like, then turns out he's a stowaway. So
Yeah, because while
No
Han,
ticket, man.
yeah, because while Han and the Imperial guy were walking here, he kind of brings up the fact, like Han, he doesn't actually say it, but Han figures it out. Han's like, okay, so this guy doesn't have money, but he's going to this big Imperial thing, which isn't really like it's a planned stop, but he could have taken another ship here that would have been cheaper. Okay, this
get
guy.
out of here.
Yeah, this guy's a stowaway. He's using this ship so he can look more fancy for his client. Got it. And so, like, Han figures it out. He basically 2 + 2 = fish. In the case, this Imperial is the fish. And so, basically he calls for the higher up on the engineer guy, and the engineer's higher up comes up and is like, "Oh, you're Han Solo. You're Leia's husband."
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's one of the few times Han's like pulled rank.
Yeah.
Like, Han doesn't like to name drop. Like, he makes it in the point of view because this
He's
is
like, it's General Han Solo.
it's General Han Solo to you.
It's General Han Organa.
Han Organa, yeah. And so, like, he's like, I don't usually like to pull rank, but this is one of the few times.
This one time, I'll make an exception.
Yeah, like, this is one of the times where it's like, oh, Han's like, this is kind of nice. I kind of like this. I don't know if I can get rid of this buzz. I kind of want to do it again.
Anyhow, this guy was trying to kidnap my wife.
And, of course, the Imperial guy's like, wait a minute, oh, no! Like, he realizes his mistake then, and he's like...
It's like realizing you've kidnapped fucking Lois Lane in a Superman.
Yeah, like, you told Clark Kent, hey, I'm gonna kidnap Lois Lane.
It's don't commit crime, said the person committing crime to the police officer.
Yeah, and so they put him in the brig, and they're like, we're really sorry, Mr. General Han Solo. We will make this right for you. You can come visit the captain of the ship with your wife,
and we'll figure out what.
Basically, they pull a Titanic where he's like able to have dinner with the captain.
Yeah.
Except unlike in Titanic, the captain's too busy, so they go to the bridge instead. And of course, Leia. So before that, though,
Yeah.
Han and Leia reconvene at their room, where they kind of have it out, because we start to see the cracks in the marriage that lead to the separation later on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of like I've said this. I think that Han and Leia's separation makes a lot of sense because it's like they lost a child. It's basically as if Ben died, and that's a lot for them to cope with. And I think both of them, like, it's just they fall back on their old habits, which is that Leia throws herself into her work, and Han runs away, or like in this case, like he starts smuggling again because like that's also what he did last time he lost someone significant in his life. But like Han tends to run away. He tends to not want to confront the problem, and Leia throws herself into her work.
and we kind of see that even before problems are really truly in the marriage. Like we see it here where Han's already like, I'd rather just gamble and not talk to my wife about what's going on.
Yeah.
And Leia is in the work, not noticing what's going on either.
Yeah, they love each other, but they've always had, I think, a hard time. Because I think the truth is, like, they don't want to make the other feel like they have to live, like, their life. Like, they understand the other has their own separate life and, like, a lot of their own separate ambitions, and they don't want to force the other to, like, fit into that life when they're not for it. Han is not really designed to be a senator's wife in the same way that Leia is not really designed to be, like I guess in the New Republic era, like a racer's wife who like sits in the stands.
Yeah, like, yeah, because I was saying this on the car ride, like, they love each other. There's no doubt about that. It's just a matter of it just didn't work out because they didn't communicate properly with their problems.
Yeah, and
also
and,
a
like,
Skywalker family tendency.
Yeah, and like I said, like I think a lot of people tend to forget how hard it really is to lose a child, especially when
Yeah,
that
that's the
child
breaking point.
comes out of such like love, and
Yeah.
they tried so hard to, especially for them, like they tried so hard for Ben not to fall into the dark side.
Yeah.
They thought that they were doing everything right, not telling him about Vader, sending him off with Luke. Like they thought they were doing everything so right, and
Yeah.
then to watch that kind of fall apart is really hard.
Yeah, Ben is the breaking point, and we see the cracks before that breaking point here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like,
Yeah.
they don't really. I'm skipping. They don't really fight here. They just talk about their day, and they're
No.
like, they're like, hey, what was your day like? Oh, and so like
Yeah.
we get one of the few like really like tender moments between them here, because this is them just talking about their days and like being happy for each other, and like he talks about the kidnapping, and they both kind of just laugh it off. Like they're like, yeah, I stopped this guy. He was an idiot.
Well, I think
Well,
the exact words.
Leia is kind of like,
Oh yeah.
like, oh, why did you do that?
Yeah. Like she's a little upset, but they kind of laugh it off afterwards. Like,
Yeah, because I think a really big theme is basically like Han knows that Leia can take care of herself, but
he still does it.
would also, yeah, well, but he wants to support her. Like Leia thinks that she has to do everything on her own, and he knows that she can do it, but that doesn't mean that she has to. And like he wants to do what he can to make sure like she knows that like she can rely on him, and she can like kind of use him to help resolve the burden, or like
Yep.
kind of lift the burden that she carries.
Yeah.
But she's so like used to doing things alone and used to having to do things alone that it's hard for her.
Which that's gonna come up when they actually fight, and because they go to the bridge. Oh, go ahead.
They discuss Han's like. So Han's looking at this, and he's like, "It's not that Keelad could kidnap her; it's that he would, and that
Because he's
it's
dumb.
coming
Because he's
from
dumb enough to try.
desperation.
Yeah, because he's dumb enough and
It's
desperate.
not
Yeah.
that this guy is smart.
Yeah, he's dumb and desperate
And
enough to
he's
do
like,
it.
This is one of the few. The only reason it would work is because Leia gives a shit about people, and even then, it probably
Yeah.
still wouldn't.
Hmm.
But I can just get rid
Yeah.
of the problem right now.
Yeah, why go through the hassle of him trying when I could get rid of it now?
'Cause it would be so easy for him to like walk up to her acting friendly and then, you know, drag her off.
Especially
Somewhere.
especially right now. when,
Because she's
Leia-
like in
Mhm.
full politician mode.
yeah, which she has somebody following her around taking pictures of
Yeah.
Pantoran that's working for Mon Mothma.
Yeah, and another thing,
Oh,
this is
apparently-
also
Oh, go ahead.
The Pantoran, apparently she becomes the captain, and she's like the captain during
Mhm.
the
Yep.
sequel era.
Yeah, during the Halcyon Legacy comics. Yep.
Yeah.
I like her design. I like her the way her yellow tattoos are, because the Pantorans
Yeah, and
always
she's,
have
like,
those
red
tattoos.
hair.
Yeah.
the other thing is Leia. So there are other people who are or were like rich and sided with the Empire.
Oh
on
yeah,
that
we didn't
shit.
really talk about Leia's bad
Leia-
day.
Oh yeah.
Leia, and so Leia overhears one of them, and essentially she hears this woman cussing her out because she's like, "My son was on that ship that you and all your fucking friends blew up," and Leia's like,
Yeah.
"Oh God, I never thought that the people I killed had families," and I'm like, "Really?
I
It's
mean,
never crossed your mind?"
it is hard to think about that though during the war.
Yeah.
Because she was in war mode. She's in. I gotta protect the rebellion and the people. She thinks that she's protecting the people by doing the rebellion
and
stuff.
she's right. She is.
But she's forgetting about
She also
the
forgot.
people on the other
Yeah.
side.
Well, like it's
But
so
it's
easy,
so-
I think, when it comes to the Empire to just be like, oh, kind of these faceless stormtroopers and people who are working with the Empire, so of course they're bad. But then you forget, yeah, like there are people who do love them
Mhm.
and like who do miss them. Like I think it's hard. Like I don't think it's that she's never thought about it before. I just don't think she's been like confronted
Yeah.
in that way
And
about
then
it before almost.
And then on top of that, there's basically the Star Wars universe version of a QAnon conspiracy theorist with that
Oh, yeah.
with that one guy who's like, yeah, the Death Star blew up and the
Blew up. Palpatine is
yeah, that
like
fucker.
Palpatine is still
Yeah,
alive
in
somewhere.
that fucker, I'm like, God,
Yeah. Palpatine's still alive,
I
but
don't
he's
hate the
allowing
woman crying for her like dead son, but that fucker, needs to shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, yeah, Palpatine's just letting the new rebellion take over. And
Well, I think too. I like how I remember there was some like discourse when this is like people like, oh, so it's just like an ad for the Halcyon Legacy, but it's kind of funny that Beth Revis, like, I mean, one, they're not on it that much. I didn't feel that way, but also that like Beth Revis kind of takes it and is like, yeah, but there's like a bunch of fucking assholes on this ship. Like, it's all of the rich people who Leia essentially says like, there's so many people on the ship who, no matter what way the war turned out, they would have been the same because either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, either way, the New Republic or the Empire like needs whatever they're selling or needs their services, or they're just so rich that they were never affected by the war and they wouldn't have been no matter what the outcome. It's very like Canto bitey.
Yeah, they're so rich they're disconnected from everything.
Yeah, and I liked that kind of like, I always really liked that kind of like thing where it's like, you have people who like, they feel like they're not doing much, but it's because they just like are so focused on like surviving. Whereas like these people, they're not focused on surviving. It's a specific stance they're taking.
It's almost a game.
It's like selling
It's
like selling bandages. No matter what happens, you're gonna be set as long as you can keep making and selling them.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. Like a lot of these people, it's like, or that one lady was selling, she's the only person who like sells that. So like no matter what, we have to go to her, and the Empire would too.
Yeah. Like it's like you said, the Canto Bite thing. It's DJ going, either way, people are gonna sell weapons and they'll be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get that, and so that's where Leia's bad day is in this before they meet up, and so like they kind of leave out. She leaves out her bad day. She does not really confront Han with this, and so they. Meanwhile, she learns that she has a mission to basically take the Halcyon off course a bit because they need to go to a specific planet where she has to meet with the king because he wants to the New Republic want to bring him in. They're like, hey, we want to bring you into the fold because you've been neutral throughout the war. We want to, yeah, neutral. I would say he's pretty neutral because he's made it.
Yeah.
Like it's not quite Mandalore neutral, but it's still like neutral enough that like.
It's like we just hang out in the Outer Rim and make like ice sculptures. Leave us alone.
Yeah, and so.
And we just happen to have this like very like whatever resource they have that's very sought after.
Yeah.
Carnium.
Yeah, the carnium. Yeah.
I'm like.
Cardium.
You guys mean to tell me you basically have a metal that operates like a generator just lying around? Here's one of the...
I mean, there's probably not a lot of it, though, because it's on this one planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so hard to get, right? Because they have to, like, mine for it.
I was thinking about I'm like, you're not one of the people that can actually, like, planets that can actually back up your independence. And no offense to them, they certainly try.
Yeah, but they don't have an army. They don't have...
I'm like, this is one of the times where I'm like, I understand why you said no, and good on you for doing that. However, long term, that's gonna bite you in the ass.
Yeah, and we kind of see some of the repercussions in this book.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, Leia has to convince the captain to go there. And so Leia basically comes up with Han with this story of, oh, well, there's this big asteroid belt that's in the way, and a bunch of crash ships, and, like...
They were going to go there anyway, but they were like, here's all the other stuff that has probably happened since last time you checked.
Yeah, like...
Hey, that highway has a nice view. There's been a bunch of car wrecks since the last time you went there.
Yeah, because hyperspace is a highway. We always talk about that. Hyperspace is like getting on the highway, and then you can only get off on certain exits. Here, they have to get off the exit early, and then take a different interstate to get to where they're going.
Yes, and they have... And I like how Han doesn't know what she's doing, but just lies with her.
Because and they bring this up because we're gonna get to the fight. In the fight, he's like, "You're my wife, so I'm gonna support you no matter what." Because
he's like, "I'm just gonna back you up."
because that's what being a husband means to me. Like, I'm just gonna back you up. And so, like, he thinks that she's just pulling a con. Like, he's like, okay, I'm in. Whatever my wife's doing, I'm part of this con. Let's go.
It's like, I don't know what it is, but I'll help her with it.
It's kind of like, since I've been watching Better Call Saul, it's kind of like when Jimmy and, oh man, it's been a couple days since I've watched an episode. But the girl in the show.
I don't know who that is.
Thanks. But it basically, they go off and do like cons all the time. Like Jimmy will start a con and then she'll join in and she's like, I'm Giselle, and this is my brother. And like they'll pull like cons together because like they'll just back each other up. And it's that. Han, like Leia's starting the con this time and Han's like, oh, okay, I'm in. And so they get back to the room afterwards, and that's when Han finds out that this is Republic work.
And he's like, God damn it.
He's like, are you kidding me?
He's like, I don't mind that it's Republic work, but like,
I understand.
Tell me.
I understand that you have some important government stuff to do while we're here, but it would be a nice heads up to let me know about the change of plans.
Especially since we're on our honeymoon. Like, literally, the first time they're in the bedroom is, like, the one nice time where you can kind of be like, oh, okay, this is a honeymoon. This time... Yeah. And so, like, yeah, they get back and they're like, yeah, this is Republic work. And she's like, you didn't have to back me up on that. And he's like, but I'm going to because you're my wife.
Yeah.
And that's when it sinks in for her. Because that goes back to what you were talking about, where, like, Leia thinks that she has to do the work by herself. But this is the point where she's like, oh, I'm in a marriage now. That means I don't have to do this by myself.
Yeah. And, like, I think it's interesting to watch her kind of have to balance, like, how involved she wants her marriage to be. Because I also noticed that, like, it's, like, at some point she seems uncomfortable, like, having this honeymoon be, like, publicity because, like, I think she's trying to find that balance between, like, is this marriage for me, or is this, like, marriage also a part of my work?
Another Skywalker tendency, keeping that work-life balance, because
yeah, exactly.
It's still, they figure it out better than Anakin and Padme, but it's still not great.
Yeah, well, and even, like, if you think about, like, Bail and Brea, like, they were both so into, like, their work, but of course, like, I mean, but they had the balance, but, like, Leia has, in her own life, seen, like, her parents, the model was, like, these two people who were very dedicated to their own work, being queen and then a senator, and then eventually being, like, leaders of the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for her, I think it's so natural to have this inclination of, like, to keep working because that's what she's seen.
Yeah.
That's what she does.
So after this little argument, they kind of make up a little bit. But there's still a little bit of hurt feelings on both sides. But Han is also starting to, like we discussed earlier, this is the moment where Han's like, yeah, I kind of rushed into this, and I also I didn't think about the Vader being her dad thing, because that conversation also comes up in this scene. Yeah.
Eventually, the galaxy will find out, and Leia's still worried about that, and apparently she never stopped worrying about that. No,
she never does. And like, Bloodline is when it comes out, and I think that's when she stops worrying because it's out.
Yeah.
And honestly, when she stops worrying, that's when things kind of work back in her favor. Because, like, Bloodline, a lot of bad stuff. She goes through a lot of bad stuff because of it coming out. But at the end of the day, she still kind of overcomes it. Because Leia can do that. She can overcome that. She just, in this moment especially, doesn't realize that yet.
Big secret. Big quiet.
Yeah. Skywalkers and their secrets. But, so they're on their way to the ice planet.
The Skywalkers just never lied about anything ever.
Never.
Yeah. But before we get to the ice planet, I do want to go ahead and I got an interview with Marc Thompson. We talked a little bit about his career. We talked about this book. And so I want to share that with you guys. And so the three of us will be right back, but you guys will get to enjoy that. Hey, Mark. Thank you for joining us on the show. It's good to have you here. We got to hang out a bit at GCX, and now we get to have you on the show.
That's right. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So I know most of our audience knows who you are, but tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself and what your importance to Star Wars media is.
Sure. So I'm Marc Thompson. I'm an actor, and primarily I've been finding work as a voice actor. And I've done a lot of different anime and cartoons. I do a lot of stuff with Pokemon, and I've been on Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. I was in a show called Daria and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and more recently I was on Transformers Cyberverse, which was really fun. And as far as the Star Wars media goes, I've been really fortunate and blessed. I've gotten to do a bunch of the Star Wars audiobooks. So that's been really awesome for me because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So that's one of the kind of the great honors of my career so far, has been able to do a bunch of those Star Wars audiobooks.
Yeah. I wanted to actually go in a little bit into your career before Star Wars. Even though we're Escape Reality Star Wars talk, we like to talk about whatever. And so
Yeah.
like you said, you did a lot of voice acting before doing audiobooks, and you got your start around the late '90s with Daria and some with some of their secondary characters that were in the first and second season, I believe. And then you later on moved on to TMNT, like you said, playing Casey Jones, being Cobra Commander in G.I. Joe Sigma 6, Wolverine in the Marvel motion comics, Astonishing X-Men, which was Gifted, and then I forget the ones after that. Gifted is probably the
I'm
better
impressed
runs.
you knew that. Yeah, that was impressive. Yeah.
And then and then you were, like you said, you were in Transformers Cyberverse, which you were Megatron. I mean,
Yeah.
Is there a character over this career that you found the most fun to play, and would you say any of them kind of prepared you to be part of Star Wars?
It's definitely a hard question to answer because I feel like I've been really lucky to kind of do a bunch of characters that are kind of reboots of shows I got to watch growing up. So like G.I. Joe, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I grew up on those shows. So the fact that I got to do characters from those franchises is like really exciting and been super fun. I think like one character that was a lot of fun to do that maybe is not as well known as I was this character Kid Muscle on this show Ultimate Muscle, and it's kind of this like anime Kinnikuman thing where it's like a bunch of like intergalactic space wrestlers, and Kid was like this super coward, and I got to do like a lot of screaming and yelling and running away and over the top comedy stuff. And that one was always really, really fun. It never found like a huge audience, I would say, but it was a lot of fun to do. And in terms of preparation, I think oddly enough, what prepared me the most for the audiobooks was in high school. I had this awesome director, Miss Hofstetter, and she cast me in a two-man show called Greater Tuna, and each actor plays 10 different characters in the show, and that was kind of my first time where I had to experiment with creating a bunch of different distinct characters and make sure they all sounded different. And I think I definitely like think back on that experience a lot, and I think it did kind of plant some seeds and help me get ready to kind of tackle some of the characters in the books that I've gotten to do. So
Wow. And I guess that means that you must really like the efforts from your answer earlier about your favorite role, because getting to make the effort noises. It seems that's a fun part, though, of voice acting.
Sure, yeah. It's always like you feel a little foolish when you're doing it, but like it's easier when you're dubbing.
Yeah.
Because you can see the animation and it makes more sense.
So then you
like
can,
how
yeah.
this is gonna.
Whereas without that, you're just making these weird noises with no context.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like, did you stub your toe or are you performing? Oh, okay, yeah.
So up to this point, you have been focused on voice acting and making the rounds in American and Canadian animation, as well as some anime. You even appeared in several video games. So we're starting to hit the year of 2007, and the new Jedi Order series has wrapped up. It's very apparent that you're a Star Wars fan first. This is the year you were hired by Penguin Random House Publishing to read your first Star Wars book. Were you already reading the books that were currently out, and how did you transition from traditional voice acting to audiobook narrator?
Yeah. Oh, you did your homework. I so yeah, I'm one of those like horrible people that I was not a reader for fun. Like I always feel guilty talking about this, but like I was the person who, if we had to do a book report in school, I would try to find the movie version and watch the movie. Because I was not a fan of reading. So when my agent called and said, "Hey, have you ever done an audiobook?" I was kind of trying to talk her out of it, and I was like, "No, not really." And I'm not sure if that would be my thing, and all this stuff. And she's like, "Well, it's a Star Wars audiobook." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on. Yes, 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 yes." So then, they sent me kind of a few pages of the book to audition with, and I remember like really going over it and like really like going back and watching some of the films and really trying to kind of get as close to the voices as I could. And I was praying about it. I was like, God, please let me get this. And I go in, and I think in the audition, I went into the studio, and I was able to do a good enough approximation of some of the voices that I think that's why they were like, okay, let's use this guy, even though he's never done a book before. But then it's like I had to, record these like 6, 8, 10, 12-hour books, and I'm not a reader. so first of all, it was like overwhelming to have to like read an entire book in a week or two. I've never done that before. And then it was intimidating to try to kind of perform the prose, is because like I think they liked that I could do the character voices, and I think initially I was maybe pretty decent at that, but I was not doing a good job of like, narrating and telling the actual story. And at one point, the director, Kevin Thompson, who directs most of the Star Wars productions,
he does a great job.
Yeah, he's awesome. And like he's definitely a huge part of why I've gotten to do it for as long as I have, because at one point he was like, the dialogue is engaging, but you're making the prose boring and it's like really flat, and he's like, you got to find a way to make the prose as engaging as the rest of as the scenes, and he was kind of talking to me about how what's unique about the prose is that you're in the character's mind. So you have to almost treat it as if it's a monologue from the character, because there's a reason because I was reading it as like, he walked into a cave and there were water dripping from the ceiling and the echo, and it was like, it was all like boring, like, yeah, blah, 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 baloney, 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 my line, and then, but yeah, like
the stuff that usually takes you out of an audiobook. It's why I think Star Wars audiobooks are some of the best with what they do.
Yeah, yeah. So like, and so he helped me to kind of put more meaning into that, and kind of think of it as, looking through the character's eyes. And so that really unlocked something for me. And now it's kind of crazy because like now I really enjoy doing the audiobooks. Like it used to be the animation was my favorite thing, but doing the Star Wars audiobooks is one of my favorite things I get to do, because I kind of see how much more time you get to spend with the characters instead of just 2 hours in a film or a half hour, an hour in a show. It's like you're really with them for this huge journey, and you're really, you get to like really see their thoughts. Like you might notice and guess at what they're thinking in a film or TV show, but like in the book, like you're really in their thoughts, like you're really knowing what's going on in their head. And now I've really come to love it. So
wow, that's amazing. So you got to be around for the end of the EU Star Wars era. You got to be the voice of all 9 Legacy of the Force novels. You got to do the Millennium Falcon and all 9 Fate of the Jedi novels, all 4 the Old Republic novels, which are some of my favorites during this era of the EU. The 20th anniversary for Heir to the Empire trilogy re-releases, which got me back into Thrawn as well. You got to do the X-Wing Mercy Kill, Scoundrels, Allegiance, Crucible, the Hand of Thrawn duology re-releases, and then the original trilogy Shakespeare books.
Yes.
So did you have a favorite book or series that you got to do during this era?
Oh, wow. I mean, I always feel like it's like they're all my babies and I love them all, but I think it's definitely a tie between Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi, just because I really loved. They all start to blend together after a
Mhm.
while, but like I can't remember if it was. I think it might have been the Fate of the Jedi, but like some of the discussions about different types of Force users, and I thought Abeloth was really creepy and cool. I loved kind of the stuff that happened between Han and Leia's kids, and
Mhm.
kind of the tragedy of that. And so there was so much in those arcs that
Yeah.
was really amazing, that I really liked. So um, yeah, so like
Okay, so around
it's
that
hard to pick one.
yeah.
Yeah, but those two, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you weren't much of a reader at the time, so that kind of throws this question a little bit. Uh,
Sorry.
but it's still fine because you got to reread the Heir to the Empire trilogy and Hand of Thrawn books,
Yeah.
and you got to be the new narrator for them. Now, you probably didn't read them growing up, but you still knew the importance of those books. What was it like being the person that they brought in to do those?
Yeah, so funny story about that. So the one time I actually bought a book and actually like started to read it was, Heir to the Empire, because it was the first ever new Star Wars after Jedi. So
Yep.
like that was the only time I went to a bookstore and I bought a book. But then my laziness got the better of me. I started it, and then like halfway through I got lazy and never finished the book. So to be asked, like, 20 some odd years later, we want you to do this. Now someone's paying me to finish the book I never finished. So and I definitely, like you said, like I was aware of the importance of Thrawn and kind of his legacy, and how he's basically responsible for jumpstarting everything that comes after, the whole entire expanded universe and all that. So it definitely, I definitely was nervous and felt kind of a huge weight for that one, and a huge honor, even though I had not read all of them
Yeah.
beforehand. So
In a way, like it's one of those things of like, in a way, without them, we wouldn't be where we are now.
yeah, no, totally. No,
Um,
it's
yeah.
amazing to think about how much that is responsible for. And Timothy Zahn is like super talented and kind, and
Yeah.
and so intelligent and insightful, and it was definitely a huge honor to get to narrate some of his stuff. So
So to quote your own voice and the written words of John Jackson Miller, "Forget the old ways." And
yeah,
in 2015, you narrated Star Wars: A New Dawn,
yeah.
which is considered a landmark title as it is the first in the new era of Star Wars novels.
Yes,
So
yeah.
how did that feel getting to be the start of this era?
That was, again, it's super exciting. And I think kind of a surprise, because I wasn't sure if with the new kind of starting point
Mhm.
in publishing, if they would want to go in a new direction and maybe, find new people, and so, and they certainly have.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure if I'd get to still play in the galaxy far, far away. So I was super excited that I did. And I can't remember if had Rebels come out at that point yet, or was this before?
It was just, I want to say it was just before, because I remember reading this book while also listening to the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack.
Oh wow.
Like, because
Wow,
I
wow.
remember getting the audiobook like day one. Like, I pre-ordered, I was like, okay, I'm on this. I'm gonna, because at that time I'd been kind of lazy. I in the same way as you, where I wasn't reading all the books.
Uh-huh.
So I had not been keeping up with Star Wars books at the time. I would get some here and there, but I wouldn't get all of them. That was when
Right.
I was like, I was paying for Audible at the time, so I had the monthly free book every month. And so I was
Nice.
like, all right, I'm going to just get every Star Wars book. I'm going to pre-order them if I have to, because I got that free
Yeah.
book that I can do. And usually Star Wars books they come out once a month, maybe 2 times a month at that time.
Yeah.
Or once every 2 months rather at that time, because they were more spaced out and because they were resetting everything. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And then the very next book was, from what I can tell, your first time doing a first person perspective,
Mm.
Heir to the Jedi.
Yes, yes, yes.
And you got to essentially play the role of Luke Skywalker in this book. More so,
Yeah.
yeah, more than say Heir to the Empire, where you did the voice, but now you got to be Luke. You got to narrate his inner monologues.
Right.
What kind of challenges did this book present?
Yeah, it was definitely. Anytime you're doing first person, it's definitely challenging to stay in the character's mindset throughout the entire thing, because there's a certain rhythm that I find when I'm narrating, I guess in third person, or like, and there's kind of a cadence that I find myself flowing into when I'm doing the narration. And so it was tricky to kind of try to stay in Luke's cadence and Luke's mindset throughout the whole thing, but yeah, it was really, I'm a big Jedi fan, so like that was like really, anytime I get to do Luke was super exciting and fun, and any of the Jedi stuff, I really love doing. So I just remember seeing the three of them on the covers, like so so they're all like, anytime I get the call to do Star Wars, I'm like, I feel super honored and excited, and kind of burdened by, I want to live up to the legacy. I want to live up to, how I know how important it is to me as a fan. So I want to make sure that the quality is the best it can be. So
yeah. And so from there, you would get to be the voice of the first post-return books in this era. So you got to do the Aftermath trilogy.
Yep.
But you'd also get the chance to return to a character you read for only a few years back, Thrawn.
Yeah. Yes.
Now the voice between both versions of Thrawn are similar, but there's also some slight differences in how you make them sound.
Yeah.
Was this something that was suggested to you by the team working on the book, or did you just think a new Thrawn needed a new voice?
It was basically, again, that was a pleasant surprise, because that one I was really surprised by, because I thought for sure they would want to distinguish between the older canon Thrawn and the newer canon Thrawn. But they liked me and they wanted me to do it again, and I was like, yeah. So at that point, Thrawn had been on Rebels, and I definitely had been watching Rebels as a fan, and Lars Mikkelsen, like you said, like he was kind of doing something similar, because I think that's just the way Thrawn is written, kind of calm, cool, collected, calculating. So he had all those qualities, but he also had this really interesting kind of rhythm, and kind of it was very hushed the way he was performing him. And there's some slight pronunciation things that he did that were interesting, and so I was definitely made a conscious decision to try to emulate what was happening on Rebels, because I thought, with the new canon, more people are going to maybe be familiar with Thrawn because of the cartoon, than necessarily, the older fans from the 90s. So I figured, like, let me do that to make sure that it's consistent with how he is now. And so that was kind of something I brought to the table, and they were cool with that and agreed, and decided to go that way. So
now we're finally almost caught up to what I'd say is the new era of Star Wars books, and where we're at currently. You never gave up voice acting. As I mentioned earlier, you were doing work in all forms continuously, and you brought up that you're still doing Transformers. You were given the chance to be in an animated Star Wars project, though.
Yes.
You were the English voice of Lan for Star Wars Vision's Tatooine Rhapsody.
That's right.
What was it like to be in a Star Wars show versus narrating a novel?
That was really cool, just because I had so many animation credits that, and I'm a fan of animation, and I really, I'd still want to work on more of them, but I was really hoping to kind of get to work on some of the animation projects. And I even, like, when they announced that Thrawn was coming to Rebels, I called my agent and was like, hey, can you reach out to them and see, because I've done them in the books, maybe they'd be open. And by that time they had announced it, they had already recorded everything.
They were already months into it, had Lars and
exactly. Yeah. So I would still love to work on an actual a multi-episode, whatever. But my a good friend of mine, Mike Sinner-Nicholas, who played Leonardo in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and is a very prolific anime director and does a lot of dubbing work, owns NYAV Studios. He got hired to do Star Wars Visions, and he knew what a big Star Wars fan I was, and kind of suggested, hey, you know, are you open to some of these ideas for casting? And you know, I know this guy who does a bunch of the audiobooks, and it might be a fun thing. And they were like, okay, yeah, sure. So he called me in, and I got to do some ancillary stuff, but then I also got to do LAN, which was really exciting and fun. And so it was definitely like answered prayer, dream come true stuff to be like, you know, in an animation, and it was a very cool project too, because it was just the style of animation was similar to a lot of some of the shows I've already worked on. So it kind of felt like this really cool melding of two worlds, you know, because I, you know, it's like the animation and the audiobook narration don't always mix, but it was fun to kind of see them come together in that way. And it was so fun. Like Mike called me in, and we were both like head over heels to be working on this project. So like he, you know, we did our lines, but then he would like say, do you want to see the rest? I was like, yeah. So like he like, you know, sat me down and we watched like, you know, a couple of the episodes and like as they're being mixed and stuff. And it was just, so we were so excited to be a part of that. And so that was awesome. Like that was just super, super fun.
Yeah, if they work on a certain project, I have a idea of where I think I would love to hear your voice brought in. Which we're actually about to talk about that era of Star Wars books, because now we're hitting the High Republic, which is I would argue is a brand new era for Star Wars. Like in terms of like really like this is 2020 became a new era. Like we got new High Republic, which is a brand new setting. So many exciting characters, and you're arguably the voice of Star Wars to a lot of listeners, but the High Republic even more so. Because you narrated all 3 of the adult novels for Phase 1.
Yep.
So what was it like working on such a vast project with so many voices united to tell a larger single story?
Yeah. I love the High Republic. Like, I think I mentioned earlier that, like, you know, lots of people like Star Wars for lots of different reasons. There's people that love kind of the bounty hunter aspect and the resistance versus the Empire, or resistance, First Order, Rebel, Empire. But I'm a big Jedi guy. Like I love the mystery of the Force. I love kind of the honor and the mission of the Jedi, and so to get to kind of be a part of this new era and kind of really examining the Jedi maybe possibly at their peak, like possibly at like when they're really living up to their ideals, and kind of there's many of them, and they're not, you know, being shot down in Order 66, you know, but like they're kind of setting out and really trying to spread, you know, light and life throughout the galaxy. I love that. And I feel like the authors have done such an amazing job really kind of diving deeper into the mythology of the Force and how different Jedi view the Force differently, seeing their struggles. I think the idea of the Nile being the antithesis of the Jedi, like the Jedi want peace and order and harmony, and the Nile just want chaos and anarchy, and I'm going to do what I want, and like, you know, selflessness versus selfishness. It's like, I couldn't have predicted how well those two groups play off of each other. And like, it's, you know, because I was like, no Sith, like what's going to happen? Like, you know, but like, it was like, I'm really loving, you know, Marchion and Ro and just all the conflict. So I'm kind of, you know, in heaven doing those books. It's just everything I love about Star Wars. And I will say, like, introducing all the new characters and and not having kind of like, you know, in the other books that I had gotten to do, I would have like the films or the shows to kind of use as an anchor or a touch point and kind of refer to, but to have all these characters are brand spanking new except for like Yoda or Terra Sanube, or, you know,
Yeah,
so like
Yoda, I don't think has been in much of the actual novels.
No.
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 He's
Yeah.
more
So,
comics.
yeah. So that was a little daunting and can be a little challenging to try to, really come up with distinct voices for all those. But it's a fun challenge, and it's definitely rewarding to do it. And then I do get to see a lot of the concept art. I read the comics, and they kind of had, when we were starting off, they gave us this Bible that had a bunch of the concept art that's been released online. So I got to see a lot of those that definitely helped inform the characters, and it was very, very useful. So, but yeah, it's awesome. Like I'm so grateful I get to be a part of the High Republic.
Going back to the Nihil and Marcion Rowe,
Yeah.
you've quickly become the voice of the main antagonist for Phase 1, Marcion Rowe himself, thanks to the audio drama Tempest Runner. I personally love that Star Wars is going back into audio dramas. They used to do them back in the 70s and 80s.
Yep.
In more recent years, we've gotten Dooku Jedi Lost, Tempest Runner, and in Phase 2 of the High Republic, we're going to get the Battle of Jeddah, which sounds exciting just from the title.
Right.
So, how does working on an audio drama compared to how does that compare to straightforward narrating or even voice acting?
I guess it's more similar to like pre-lay animation because you're just doing the dialogue and you're just doing your characters. So, the fun part about that is if we're lucky, if there's no COVID, we get to play off the other actors. So, like when we did Dooku Jedi Lost, they had 5 or 6 microphones in a room, and we were all kind of in there together, and we got to play off of each other and kind of do scenes together. So it really was the old radio show where they're doing the Foley or whatever. They did ours, the sound effects they do digitally, but we got to actually read the scene together, and there's nothing that can replace that because you get so inspired by someone else's performance, and there's a way that they read a line that's going to be different than the way I would read the line to myself. And so inevitably their performance influences my performance, and then my reaction to their performance reflects, inspires their performance. And, so it's just, you feed off of each other, and there's this synergy that happens, and it's so fun to do that. It's much more like theater. And so I love those. They're definitely, from what I hear, much more difficult to produce on the production end because it's coordinating everything, casting everything. Then you have to insert and edit everybody's stuff together, and so they're more rare because they take a lot more to do. But I love that, like you said, I love that they're doing that more often, and I hope they will continue to do so because they're really special. As great as the audiobooks are in terms of immersiveness and the sound and the effects, when you have a full cast doing it, it just ups everything a notch. It just raises the level of everything. So I hope we get to do a lot more of those because they're really, really fun to do.
Yeah. All right. So this month, however, we've gotten The Princess and the Scoundrel that just came out.
Yes.
We're talking about it for today's episode of the podcast.
Woohoo.
Like we mentioned last time, you worked with several narrators for audio dramas, and you've also done some short story collections as well from a certain point of view books. So you've gotten to work kind of with other narrators. What was it like having an actual co-narrator though for The Princess and the Scoundrel?
Yeah, that was interesting. That was kind of a new approach, and I can't wait to hear what Saskia has done with her chapters.
I'll say,
reading.
Yeah, I'll say from hearing from hearing it myself, because I got to listen to it. I'd say you both did beautifully, and I love Saskia's reading of Leia. Personally,
that's great. Yeah. I loved that. The way Beth kind of I one of the devices of the book that I don't think is a spoiler because people will know this when they pick it up or buy it, but you have some of the chapters are from Han's perspective, and then some of the chapters are from Leia's perspective, and that was a really cool literary device and a cool way to approach the story. To get to again, you get to kind of go in each of their minds in a very natural way, and so I love that as a storytelling device, and I feel like you really get to know Han and Leia and what makes them tick on a much deeper level, you know. So, and it felt very true to the films. Like it felt like she really understood kind of those characters, and it felt very true to the spirit of what we see in Empire and Jedi and Star Wars, and so I really love doing it. And then there is a special bonus at the end that we adapted specifically for the audio book that listeners might enjoy for that last chapter.
So this was also a chance to go back to Han Solo and Leia Organa, who you haven't read for since the Aftermath trilogy.
Yeah.
And in a way, this novel sets the stage for those novels. Because there's some stuff there. And it takes place almost just before them. I think on the timeline, it's this, the Shattered Empire comic, and then the Aftermath novels.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So how did it feel getting to go back to these characters after about 5 years?
Yeah, it's really cool. Like I was thinking about it, and like I missed them, you know, like I missed getting to be with Han. Chewie, come on, you know, like it's just like he's so fun to do, and kind of that you know, cockiness and that kind of bravado, and like, you know, and their banter is just like you don't get much better than Han and Leia arguing with each other. So it's like it was really fun. It was like visiting an old friend. It's like, you know, oh wow, I miss these guys. I love seeing them together again, and so it was really special to get to do it once more.
All right. Well, before you leave us, is there anything you can tell us about future books you're working on?
Ooh, well, we've been going back and redoing a bunch of the Rogue Squadron X-Wing books.
Yeah, I actually got to listen to the third one that just came out.
Was it Krytos?
Yeah, the Krytos trap. Yeah.
And that already came out, did it?
Yes. At the
Gotcha.
time.
Okay,
Yeah.
I sometimes miss the release dates of those. So yeah, those have been really fun, and we're actually on Monday. I'm speaking to you from the future, so it'll have already happened. Hopefully, it went well. But I'm going to be starting Back to War, so that's going to be really fun. So that'll be coming out soon. And then that's the only one I can talk about right now. But there's
obviously High Republic's going on somewhere.
Yeah. Like I hope I get to be a part of the Battle for Jeddah. I really hope I get to do that. And so and Prince of the Scoundrel, like you said, is releasing now. So
yeah. All right. Well, thank you once again for coming on the show. It was great having you. It's always good talking to you because I enjoyed having our little chit chats about that.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me. This has been really fun.
All right, we're back. Woo. Hello. Yeah, I love that. Thanks for joining us, Cal. And I love that interview with Marc Thompson. It was fun. I had a lot of fun talking to him about it, and he was enthusiastic to be part of this book. And he's at the time hadn't listened to Saskia's readings yet, but I hope he gets a chance to hear it by now. I
just looked it up. I didn't realize that he also did the solo audiobook, so that's cool.
Yeah, that was one I guess I forgot to mention in my interview, because I was going through all the stuff he did, and I was like, he did this and this and this, and like he has a storied career, man. He went from voice acting in the 90s with Daria as like secondary characters all the way to this, and even still doing voiceover work. So he's like, in the interview I bring up that he's in the new Transformers show, and so
that's cool.
He has a storied career. I hope, because we talked about it, I hope he gets a voice acting gig with Star Wars beyond just Visions. Yeah, it'd be so cool to see him in like I don't know, like a season of the Bad Batch or something. Yeah, I want a High Republic animated show, and I want Marchion Ro. Yes. And give us Marc Thompson as Marchion Ro. Yes, that would be so good. Yes, I also would love I know sometimes they have fun little cameos for authors who are different people involved in Star Wars. If he made a cameo in something live action as whatever random person walking in the background. Yeah. Oh, and the Acolyte maybe, because that's kind of High Republic connected. Yeah. So let's I guess let's get back to the meat of the book, because we are now in Act 2 essentially. I consider this Act 2 of the book, because so they've made it to the ice planet, and they're greeted by the king, who's like, "Hey, welcome. I was kind of expecting you, so welcome." And Like, he's like, I also got some housing ready for y'all to stay in, so you can stay for days here. Basically, like, because it's a luxury cruise, so people are expected to, it's like when you go to the islands in real life and on a cruise, and they like stop at the islands, and you're expected to go off for like a few hours and then get back on.
Yeah, it's 3 days.
Yeah, it's 3 days, and so some of the people on the Halcyon Legacy, because the king is like, hey, I know it's a little early for everybody else to be here, but hey, we'll let anybody who wants to be here can be here.
Yep,
because we got the room for them, which
Yeah.
Han finds a little bit suspect.
Yeah. He's like,
Because they
not too sure about that one.
Because they talk about he brings up the how long it took to build the housing.
Yeah.
Because Han is like, hey, so like, how long did it take you to do this? Like, because this is a lot of work, and I don't imagine there's a lot of people that were doing this work, because you guys are a smaller, like, it's a smaller tight knit community.
Yep.
And like, he gives him the number of how long it takes to build one house, and Han kind of does the math, and he's like, it would have taken you about 2 years.
Yeah, that, and then they have this suspicious black tower that no one wants to talk about or go near.
Yeah, which I also did the math, and my math was a little bit faster than Han's. My math was like, if they were like if they were building multiple houses at once, it would have taken them about 6 months. So, like, if they were doing it almost all at once as a big project, half a year. But that's giving it like the quickest time. But even then, that's suspicious, and even on the 2 years, it's even more suspicious. Because he's like, why would you be building this many houses for 2 years if you're not expecting anybody?
Yeah, and if a bunch of your population was just killed in an ice quake or whatever, like the city.
This is an unexpected stop. There is no way you could have actually known we were going to stop here.
Yeah, like you would have you had some advance notice, but not enough for this.
Yeah.
To build so many houses.
And so like Han decides to call him out on both.
Yep.
He's like, you got too many houses, and you got that stupid black spire that nobody will talk about.
It's weird, man.
And like,
and he's like,
why do you have the
King's like, just don't worry about it. We'll have some dinner. I'll show you a good time. Let's go to the banquet.
Have you had alcohol? Have you had alcohol tonight? You should have some.
You should have some more alcohol.
Eventually, after some very much teeth pulling from Han, they basically get that the Empire did approach them first.
Yeah. And we told them no.
But they said no.
But that doesn't stop the Empire. And
it never stops the Empire.
And like Han and Leia both know this, and they're like, you should be concerned, because you're on their radar now.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
And then
he said,
as they say that, that's when the Empire's like, hey, we're back.
We never left.
And we're with, one of the villains from a story that a lot of people probably forgot about.
I did not know who she was.
I also was like,
so you haven't read this, so I didn't expect you to know.
You?
So she appears in the it was one of the books that came out when The Force Awakens was coming out. So they did the Journey to Force Awakens books.
Yeah.
It was the junior novel for Han. It was the Han Solo adventure.
Oh, cool.
And so she was the villain in that, Beck. And so
I noticed like heavily if Beth Revis loved to include other material from other like books and comics in this, like, references to Princess of Alderaan, Rebel Rising. Of course, we have like the very explicit, straight up, we're the bounty hunters.
And of course, a little bit of Most Wanted, because
Yeah, Most Wanted. I was like, I appreciate it. I guess that also Han stuff. I appreciated how much she was referencing and pulling from like other materials to really like flesh out their story.
But yeah, so Beck was somebody that was in Han's past that him and Chewie went off against as they were trying to save somebody from a planet. Basically, they were trying to pick up an informant. This is like just after A New Hope. And so
Okay.
they're trying to get an informant, and Beck was the lead in charge of stopping them. And so, yeah, Han and Beck have a little bit of a history there.
History.
And so
She really wants to kill him.
she's like, you stopped me last time. I'm not going to do it this time. But no, it doesn't go well for her.
At first, I was kind of towards the end because I guess. No, I don't want to jump too far ahead.
Well, it's fine. We can jump around.
My initial assumption was, damn, you're going to take out an entire planet just to kill this one man.
I mean, the Empire's done more for less.
Yeah, true.
They took out Alderaan just because they could.
Just to prove it.
Yeah, just to prove a point.
Yeah, just because they wanted to see Leia
Yeah,
hurt.
because they were like, oh yeah, we'll get to Dantooine. But yeah, so yeah, eventually they convinced the king, hey, no, this is a problem for you, so you need to work with us. And so
Very explicit Rogue One, or because it was, it's easier to pretend Imperial flags weren't there if you didn't look up at them.
yep.
I was like, wow, the Sagarera-ification of Leia.
She's not quite like she's not quite to the level where she's gonna, risk it all for civilians though.
The mentality.
But yeah, she's very much, hey, we gotta fight for what we love, and if you care about this planet and your people, you need to do something.
Yeah. And then turns out there's this whole, rebellion that's been there the whole time, trying to sabotage the Empire.
Yeah, it turns out there's just been this entire secret war beneath the ice of this planet that the king was like, I don't really know about, but also ignorance is bliss.
He's
so
like, I know about it. I can't say anything because that puts people in danger.
Yeah.
So I have
Yeah.
to balance this constant thing of how much I know and what I should or should not say.
yeah.
Especially to random people he's never met. You don't know how much you can really trust them.
And especially since Imperial spies are all over, so who knows where they're listening from.
Yeah.
Do you know where the Empire is? No. They're in your cabinet.
They're everywhere.
Quite literally in your walls.
Yeah. And so
We wiretapped all year.
after a huge battle, because they go through it, there's a big fight, and I was not I was not expecting that in this book. This book I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it was not this.
I wasn't expecting political thriller.
I mean,
as well
I
as
was
romance.
I kind of expected political thriller because Leia, but
Should have been expecting that.
but I was not expecting
I
a
wasn't
huge battle.
expecting
I
guerrilla
wasn't
tactics.
expecting. Yeah, I wasn't expecting Leia using the Force to get Wales to help defeat the Empire, which
Yeah.
was such a great moment. But oh my god, it was unexpected and also perfect.
Once again, confirming the best Force users can work with animals.
Yes, it was really her Disney princess. They truly were cementing her as a Disney princess.
Well, and it's great because throughout Star Wars canon and Legends, it's really hard for that specific Force ability of communicating with animals and working with them. Because in canon, I think it's only really Ezra and
Kanan a little.
Leia, and Obi-Wan. It's referenced that he's done it, but we never seen it.
I think it's
Because
you're
Obi-Wan
right
and
in that
because Obi-Wan and Anakin mention it in the comic. Because
they both have done it, but they were like, "That was so hard. I'd rather never do it again."
because Obi-Wan tries to train Anakin to do it in the Obi-Wan and Anakin comic, in the flashbacks of that comic, but Anakin struggles with it because he's too frustrated. It's like Ezra in season 1 of Rebels when he's trying to do the Loth Cat. He's just so frustrated that he can't.
Yeah, but it kind of, I like how much it makes sense for Ezra and Leia as rebels, and knowing the importance of how something everyone can kind of help the cause. Like I kind of like that in that sense of like, oh, there's so much that can be like everyone can help. Every little thing matters, or to protect. So I think that's like it's kind of cool that like they're the kind of main ones in canon who we see.
Yeah, and Legends it's brought up a little bit more. I know your character in Knights 2 can do it if you take that skill tree, but
Wasn't one of Han and Leia's kids in Legends?
I think so. I think it might have been. I think it's Anakin Solo that can do it.
Oh, I haven't read a lot of Legends.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've read him, but I think it's Anakin that can do it because Anakin is the most. Yeah. He's the more sensitive of the three, but also it doesn't help that he and Han share this moment of watching Chewie die.
Jesus Christ!
From a moon.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, that's the story of where the moon lands on Chewie. Yeah, but going back to this book, which is a little less depressing than that. After all this, like I think there's also like another like another avalanche that happens because of all this fighting.
Yep.
Yeah, quake.
Yeah, another quake. And so like literally the Empire is causing this, like I think it really shows that the Empire affects this planet more than just on a political level. It's affecting it on a ecological level.
Yeah, and then like for Leia, like I mean, it just makes Leia's involvement so much more personal. Like like Han basically says this is like she just doesn't want to see these people basically go what she went through, which is like she doesn't want to see the Empire take another planet from people, especially when they've already taken so much from them.
Yeah, exactly. But eventually, everything works out. The day is saved with a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get a kind of
Poe's mom comes in and helps save the day.
I love the Kez and Shara dynamic.
Yes, and I love how they like reference that they have a baby now. Like I was so happy to see the little sequel connection, but also to see Poe's parents.
Yeah, I find it. See, it's so weird now knowing that.
Last time I left them, they were in a pretty bad spot. I'm glad they're okay.
Yeah, because he hasn't read past Crimson Reign. So last.
Oh, I was like, isn't she like in the like prison or something? She's with the Empire right now.
So we've gotten to the part where they've been rescued, and so.
Oh, okay.
And also, Tarkin's prodigy is dead, presumably.
Ah.
No, she fucking isn't, from where I recall.
No, because she got she's been. Oh, did we not get? Is that not part of the part that we read?
No. She calls up Leia at the end of Crimson Reign to tell her that she lived.
That's right. So you haven't read the rest of that arc. Yeah. So you haven't read the rest of that arc.
I haven't read the rest of it.
That's right. So I don't want to spoil that then, because we'll read it eventually. Yeah.
All of this comic information I just know from Live and Hay, because they talk about comics all the time, and we have a section on our podcast where they go over the comics.
But yeah, so the king still is kind of like, can I still be like neutral? I kind of want to still have my independence, and Leia's understanding of that. Leia's like, look, you can still have that, but we're here if you ever call upon us.
Yeah.
And like the New Republic will help you regardless.
Yeah. That's where the New Republic is trying to do better than the Republic. Because the New Republic, but it's also where the New Republic kind of does too much, and we see that in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
We see that in Mandalorian, where it's like, it's not our territory, but we're still gonna police it.
Yeah, or in like some cases, kind of where like the lack of unity can sometimes lead to like its kind of downfall. Like we see in the fact that like because they weren't as unified, it kind of led to like the First Order being able to like collect.
Yeah. So like there's some positives and negatives to this kind of thinking of, well, you don't have to join us, but we're here if you call us. Like, the positive is that it gives more freedom, something that the Republic kind of was bad at during the prequel era. Like, the Republic during the prequel era was like, oh, you're on your own if you're not part of us. Which is also something the High Republic was good at, because the High Republic's like, oh, you don't have to be part of us to be part of the Republic. We got you.
Yeah.
The difference...
But the High Republic is trying to, like, really bring Mark
high-
Whelan, because that's like when like the mid rim is still like considered like really out there.
Yeah.
And man, it's like a real mixed bag in the High Republic, because it's like, look at all the good we're doing, but also, man, these guys really don't want us here sometimes.
So much
Really?
so much so that they've casted a literal wide net of mines to stop us from going through it now. Eye of the Nihil.
Fucker.
That ending, man. He's like, we're just gonna plant some mines here.
You know what?
If-
Oh, the fact that we have to
Go
wait
ahead.
so long too to see because we're going backwards again. We're not gonna know what's up with that last like. Oh god.
You
yeah.
know what? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Also, poor Farzala's master. Rip.
Missing, presumed dead. Oh no.
Yeah, I think he's dead because I think Markion kills him at the end of that issue.
Oh.
He doesn't kill him. The
Oh.
Nameless might.
Oh, the nameless might.
but
Yeah,
He's not dead.
Yeah.
I think he's dead. He brought him to. I think once the nameless get involved, and unless you're the detective guy from Trail of Shadow, you're not surviving. But yeah, so that was Princess and the Scoundrel. I
Yeah.
mean, they go back on their cruise and they go off to greater and better things. And
He
then
gives her the ring that we see in the sequel trilogy, her
Yeah.
wedding ring, which she wears even when they're separated and also after Han dies. Which is, I think that proves, if anything, like they always did love each other. Like even when they weren't together in the sequel trilogy, like they still loved each other. She clearly still thought of Han as her
yeah,
husband.
like I mean, I don't imagine they ever officially divorced either. I imagine they were the kind that was just like, okay, we're separate, but like we're
Yeah,
not
and
gonna see other
especially-
people.
We're gonna take some
Yes.
time to process this differently.
Process. And especially because in Bloodline, they spend so much time apart, even like as a couple, because like she's on, I forget what planet, doing like she's a part of the Senate, and he is has this like racing team.
Yep.
So like they see each other like when they can, but like they very much lead like they're married, but they very much lead like separate lives.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the
And then-
even in the canon, I forget the name of the book, the Lando book with Han and
Oh,
Lando.
last shot.
Last Shot. Even then, like Han is off doing his own thing with Lando, and Leia's
Yeah.
busy with the Republic, and I forget who's watching over Ben at the time because he's a baby in this. I think it's it's the nanny droid. Isn't there a nanny droid in that one? Yeah.
Turns
Didn't
out,
the nanny droid try to kill him?
Yeah.
turns out installing a new government is hard.
Yeah.
Hard,
No.
yeah. And like I always love Leia's like acknowledgement of like Han. This isn't like what Han wants for his life. He doesn't want to be here and be like my senator husband, and like I'm not gonna make him do that.
Yeah, like your mom just commented. Yeah, not quite unrequited love. Yeah, it's not that. That's not the
Yeah,
issue. They
no.
love each other. It's
No,
a
they love each other.
They
It's-
love each other.
it's just
But
personal
because-
differences that they can't
Yeah,
talk they just cannot talk about.
they love each other so much, and they want to see the other succeed so much that like that's almost the issue. Is like how much they don't want to like be a burden on the other person, or like make the other person do something they don't want to do.
Yeah. And so I think this book ends in a very great way of like
Very sweet.
it's very sweet, but it's also kind of bittersweet because of the knowledge that
Yeah.
we have as readers of what happens down the line.
Yeah, or even like thinking about them talking about having a child, knowing that one day they'll both sacrifice themselves to try to save that child is just like
Yeah.
so. It was
Your mom said it's frustratingly romantic. Yes.
yeah.
yeah. Kylo Ren, who was, or Ben Solo, who was probably conceived on the Halcyon.
Probably.
Probably. Yeah, it was probably during that first one because they mentioned that they rested together, but they don't like talk. Obviously,
Yeah, I was
it-
like,
it's
either that or on
implied.
the Falcon.
like it's implied that they slept together on the Halcyon Legacy. It's never stated, but it's like
We have some nice fade to black scenes.
Yeah.
yeah, we have enough fade to black scenes where we're like, okay, it could have been here or here. It still blows my mind like how old Poe is though. Like because Poe was
Yeah, I
Like-
forgot that Poe was technically older than Kylo.
yeah, because he was born after or during Empire. It's during that era.
Yeah.
And so like
Yeah.
and so because it's weird to me to think of that because Shattered Empire came out first and everybody assumed oh that's when Poe was born. He was born or conceived. He was conceived during the celebration on Endor. But no, now we know. No.
No,
He was already
beforehand.
like a year old.
Yeah, for some reason I thought like him and Kylo were like the exact same age. I figured they were both conceived after the war, so then like here and I was like, oh, so Poe's actually a little bit older.
Yeah,
like, they
'cause-
still would have grown up together, but
Because the mainline comics have kind of, I wouldn't say retconned it because we never got confirmation that Endor.
Cover-
Yeah, like they never said.
challenge the assumption.
Yeah, it challenged the assumption. But yeah,
It's
so-
one of those fanon things we all accepted, and then like canon is like, no.
yeah. So I give this. Ooh, it's hard to place this because it's a good book. And I love the way Beth presents it. Either 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. Because it's pretty good. Like, I can see myself sitting down and going back to this again because it's just that good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's short. It's only 400 pages on a
Not
physical.
even.
Like, it was, for the digital one I gave him, it was like about 400.
400. Yeah, it goes
400.
fast too.
419 pages, and I think the reason why it's even 419 is because some pages are just a line and nothing else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you have your blank
Yeah.
pages and then your single
Yeah, because
lines.
this is about 350, the physical.
Yeah, and I think the audiobook's only maybe about 12 hours. It's because it's more of a novella than a novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the upside, they're together now.
So where would you put it on this scale?
I'm gonna give it a solid 8.5.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Considering the lowest I've gone is like,
I think the lowest you've got is like 6
yeah,
on something. But even then you were like, it's still good. It's just,
not what I was looking for.
yeah. Where would you?
I'd give this full 10 out of 10. This is easily one of my top 5 favorite Star Wars books, which does mean that Beth Revis takes up 2 places in my
Yeah,
top 5.
I think for the show, I've only given one 10 out of 10, and it was for Fallen Star.
I don't think I've ever given.
But we also haven't gotten further in the timeline. It's mostly been High Republic stuff and then a few things that have come out this
The High
year.
Republic stuff is so good, though.
Yeah, and
it makes sense why your ratings have been so high then.
and it's hard to get, and it's hard to give 10 out of 10s for me because I'm like, that means it's perfect, and it's really hard to say perfect.
Yeah, maybe 9.5, but like I just like this is.
Oh, I'm not trying to change you.
No.
You.
Oh no, yeah, but like this is. I mean, it was a combination of 2 of my favorite characters written by a Star Wars author
Who
that I
really-
love and already loved one of the books.
And she really gets the characters. Like she really understands
Yes.
Han and Leia.
She does. I'll
Yes.
give her that.
I'm so happy that Beth Revis has written both Jin and Leia now.
I really hope they give her an opportunity now, because I guess it's a young adult novel. I forget what they classified this one as. Is this a novel?
This is an adult.
Okay.
This is an adult novel, yeah.
I want her to write more adult novels.
Yeah.
I'm campaigning for that now because I like Beth's writing. I also want more of like the narrators that we'll get more Mark obviously, but I want more Saskia because I think she did a great job.
Yeah. I'd love to see Beth try to write Rey in like a post Rise of Skywalker situation. I think that would be really cool.
She could really. I think she would do well with Rey and Poe, and I could possibly even see Finn being really well for her.
Yeah, but I also think I don't know. I'd be interested too to see her like even write like another person in like the kind of New Republic Rebel era. Someone like I don't know, like Hera
or even
or
Mothma, because we do not have enough Mon content, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it would be kind of cool to get kind of a book that maybe filled in some of the gaps, like now that we have Andor filling in like the 5 years before Rogue One, but like kind of maybe fill in like all of the years between like the fall of the Republic to like around like maybe Andor time would be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, I would also like to see her, because everybody slanders Mon Mothma because of how she dealt with the aftermath of, because in the Aftermath novel, she removes the military structure for the New Republic.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because Mon Mothma has always been, she's against
staunchly a pacifist, and
Yeah.
she always has been.
Yeah, and so like she's a pacifist, and she's like, well, we don't need a standing army anymore because peace times.
That's
Yeah, and I understand the logic of like,
I see
especially when
why.
you're trying to like
I
lure
don't-
people into we're okay.
The problem is
I see why.
the-
I don't think it's a good idea.
So the problem
Yeah.
the problem lies in years later where people blame Mon for this, even though she's no longer the one in charge of the Republic. Because by bloodline, it's somebody else, and that's when the problems are
She's-
starting.
Like there were enough people. There was someone else. Like other people could have
Yeah,
put together a standing army.
like there was a
Yeah.
new chancellor by the time of Bloodline, because Mon
Yeah,
had already
or-
retired from politics.
Yeah, it'd also be cool to get a story of her becoming chancellor and kind of seeing that like a real heavy political book.
Yeah, because Aftermath
for her.
gives us the broad brushstrokes of it.
Mhm.
Because we get she becomes obviously she's the one who takes it because she's the most qualified other than Leia, because
And she's quite a bit older than Leia, so
Yeah.
she's like 25 or something.
yeah, so like people figure, well, Leia could eventually run for chancellor, but Mon is the more obvious choice here.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Mon's a bad character, but also on the other hand, what does Mon Mothma do? If someone asked me that question, I think all I would have to say is, I think she does politics for the rebellion.
Yeah, she's mostly
technically correct,
she's mostly
but not a very in-depth answer.
Yeah, she's mostly a politician, but she's also a leader. She understands strategy still. But that's
and like and also because she has like such a grasp on like politics and like what the Empire's doing, I think that especially helps in the beginning.
Yeah, because
kind
her
of like Bale, like knowing the inner workings of the Empire and like what bills they're passing on, what they're trying to do.
because her and Bell were both senators in the Imperial Senate at the start, and because I mean they were both around for the Republic in the fall, because there's the deleted scene with Mon Mothma and
Her.
Revenge. Yeah, with the same
I
actress
mean,
we're
I'm
getting for
assuming-
Andor.
Yeah, I'm assuming Andor is. I mean, because she's basically been advertised as like the other main character of the show, and how Genevieve has talked about it. It seems like it's going to go really into depth about not only her work with like the rebellion and what she's doing as a senator, but also like some of her more like personal life stuff.
Yeah,
Like it's kind of more the woman behind the figure that we've seen in just like sprinkled throughout these shows and movies.
yeah. All right, so we have done. I think we've talked enough about it for this week.
Oh.
Because we are running on time here. I mean, I always love having guests because I love just talking Star Wars.
Yes.
I mean, he knows I could do this literally all day, every day. If I could, I would just do the podcast every day, but I can't. So remind everybody where we can find you.
So you can find me on TikTok at StardustEm, and then on Twitter and Instagram at _StardustEm. You can also listen to my podcast, Kessel Run Relay. That's on Apple and Spotify, and then we're also on Instagram, Twitter. I think it's like Kessel Run Relay Pod on there.
Yeah, I put the links down below on the YouTube link. So I guess I'll do my little bit of.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It's youtube.com/Escape Reality Films. Once again, if you want to find Em, you can find her in the links down below, because we got her Twitter, TikTok, and the podcast Twitter down there. You can also find us on twitch.tv/CJ Star Wars 94. And if you're watching from there, feel free to follow or subscribe there. I play some games every now and then. We hang out with Cal, who was in the chat on YouTube today.
Okay.
Yeah, we play some GT. Well, I was playing GTA late last night. That's why I slept in today. So, and then if you want to find the YouTube from Twitch, the links are there. And then I also want to thank the people that provide this space for us here, because this is not our own space.
Yeah.
I want to thank Gamers and Geeks. That's our local gaming shop, not Geeks and Gamers. I always have to clarify that. I always have to clarify that when we have guests on, because it's like, oh, what? No.
It's hit a little shock to my system there.
No, Gamers and Geeks, that's our local gaming shop here in Mobile, Alabama. If you happen to be in the area, they do everything, just about everything. I mean, you got Magic, you got Pokemon, D&D.
They do a bit.
They do a little bit of everything, Warhammer. They got an arcade in the back where you can pay $10 for a day, and it's free play arcade, so you just pay the $10 and you pick what cabinets you want to play on, and they're slowly adding more and more games. Like, they have one cabinet that has like just a bunch of games on it, including Moonwalker, Michael Jackson Moonwalker. And then next door they got Engage Gaming, which is you can be a member or not, but if you're a member, you pay a monthly fee, and they provide consoles for you to play on at an hourly rate, Xbox, PC, VR, all the works. And they provide the games as well, and you just pay at an hourly rate. You pay a little less if you're a member. I still need to invest in that because I want to play the VR Star Wars games really badly. Because I do not have PSVR yet, but I have Vader Immortal on PS5.
I see.
And then also Mobcast Network. So Mobcast Network are the ones who actually rent the space from Gamers and Geeks. They're another podcasting network that I work with. I produce on their shows. We've got Cult Movie Cantina, where lately we're nearing the end of the season. We're talking about the Clerks movies. We've done Clerks 1 and 2, and in a few weeks we'll be talking about Clerks 3 after it's come out. Because we're all going to the theaters together to watch it. Kevin Smith. And then we also do a Star Wars podcast there. We're going to be talking about Andor soon. We'll be doing a weekly episode basis, so we'll probably do the first two together, and then because I don't imagine Scotty's going to want to do all three in one episode, depending how long the episodes are. And so that's going to be coming back soon. And then we also do Tuesdays with Scotty, which is Scotty's we talk about whatever he feels like, which I've got some topics I want to bring up with him soon. I want to talk about John Peters and his obsession with mechanical spiders in movies. And right now that's on hiatus because we're filming a bunch before releasing. And you can find Mobcast Network at youtube.com/Mobcast Network or on any podcasting app. They're pretty much on everything, and if they're not, just email them and they'll try to join it, but they're on Spotify and all that good stuff. I think that is Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
I almost forgot the Patreon. I was talking about it when we were doing the interview. If you want to help support the channel even more, we do have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/Escape Reality Films. All the money there goes back into this, because eventually the dream is to be able to pay Seth to do this full time, and myself, because I'm freelance now, as I bring up every once in a while, and so the money that I make is my own at this point. So, so Patreon is useful, and I want to thank Jennifer Brantley, Seth's mom, who is our currently main Patreon member. The first level gets you access to the Discord, where we've got a bunch of cool people in there. Emma's in there now, and we've got Element 7, Darth Chaco, a bunch of fun people. I did bad this week, but usually I put the book that we're reading into the episode into the Discord on Tuesday, before Tuesday, but this time I didn't put it until Tuesday. and usually we talk about it, but
Yeah, there will be like.
yeah, usually there's some discussion in the Discord about it, and so that's another reason to join. And also, I'm working on a comic book based on my novels, Superworlds, which you can find on Amazon. They're self-published through Amazon, Superworlds, and then The Coat Wars, which is a collection of short stories set in the Superworlds universe, and then Time Ninja, which is a brand new series that's about a time-traveling ninja who's out for revenge for the death of his family. And the comic I'm working on, we're putting art up every week, and at the end of the show, I'm actually going to put up some art onto the Patreon, so that's another reason to check us out, see all the things we're doing. Woo! That was a mouthful. I think the only thing left to do is talk about what we're going to talk about next week.
Yes.
We are going to be talking about the Rebels comic, because I remember when Rebels magazine was a thing, but it wasn't in the U.S.
Yeah.
It was in the U.K., and I would read the comic parts online, but then they stopped releasing them because only Germany was doing them. But now that Dark Horse has the comic book, they took the license that IDW had. So Marvel and IDW had a license. Marvel kept theirs, but IDW, I guess, didn't renew or whatever. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but IDW lost theirs. So now Star Wars Adventures and High Republic Adventures and all that stuff will be done by Dark Horse. And Dark Horse also decided, hey, we're going to reprint the Rebels comics from the magazine, which means all the comics that I never got to read are in one place. So next week, we're going to have Scotty on the show from Mobcast Network, who was in here earlier talking about Rebels and stuff, because he's a big Rebels fan. He loves Rebels. It's what...
It fuels them.
We'll talk about it more, but it's what brought him back as a fan for Star Wars. And so he has that the comic, so we have access to that comic, so we're going to read that next week and talk about it with Scotty. All right. Once again, thank you for being on the show. It was fun having you.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see everybody next week with Scotty, and I have spoken.